Chapter 160. Northern Continent, Overmera Headquarters. Southern Continent's Green Valley town was attacked, and we lost this territory. The last news was an hour ago. Lu Cheng died in battle, and Balsas and Xiao Rue retreated. There's no new news yet, so it's probably not going well. An exquisite crystal wine glass fell to the ground, and the red wine left a blooming rose on the expensive handmade carpet of Ordina. Big Boss Dilat breathed heavily like a bear. His body was about the same size as a bear, so his nickname was Overmera's White Bear. This was Dilat's study room. He had a violent temperament, so the bookshelves were not filled with books, but with all kinds of guns, ammunition, daggers, and swords. It was like a small armory. Who dared to touch our people? Dello glared at them. A tall, middle-aged man was sitting in front of the desk. He was wearing a suit that looked like a suit, but the details were different. He was wearing a pair of gold-rimmed glasses, and the gold-plated glasses were hanging on his ears. If one ignored the strong muscles that supported the suit, this person looked like a scholar. Overmera's second leader, Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin held the tablet computer with one hand and said lightly, "There are two enemies. One is a warlord from Southern Continent called Lu Cheng. I've heard of his name before. He's one of the armed forces gathered in Southern Continent. I want him to pay blood for blood. Overmera must take revenge." Dilat slammed the table and asked, "Who's the other person?" "Darknet's meritorious assassin, Black Phantom. Get him." Dilat paused after saying 3 words. He reacted, and his face darkened. "How do we get him involved?" Black Phantom, a legendary assassin who came and went like a shadow. Dilat was very wary of this kind of lone wolf. Overmera was a big family, and they were most afraid of legendary assassins like Black Phantom. If he went crazy and tried to assassinate the middle-level members of the family, it would be impossible to guard against. Although Dilat was impulsive, he knew who he could mess with and who he could not. He could deal with Lu Cheng without hesitation. Lu Cheng's forces were in Southern Continent, so it was impossible for him to affect the Overmera headquarters in Northern Continent. However, Black Phantom was different. He was a lone wolf who could come to Northern Continent. Even Lu Cheng was killed. Whether the experts in the family could pose a threat to Black Phantom was still a question. Furthermore, Black Phantom's whereabouts were unpredictable. Without a huge intelligence network, they could not even find him. The organization that he worked for was the world's largest intelligence network. Dilat felt that he would be treated as a fool if he asked the Darknet for help to deal with people from the Darknet. Overall, making an enemy out of Black Phantom was not a wise choice. Dilat could only suppress the anger in his heart and find an excuse. Investigate the reason why Black Phantom intervened. Don't mess with him first. Xiao Jin nodded. His face was expressionless, and no one could tell what he was thinking. Dilat had a bad temper. He pointed at Xiao Jin's face and shouted, "You better solve your son's problem quickly. The war is coming. I don't want to have anything to do with the germinal organization at this time." Xiao Jin pushed his glasses and said lightly, "He's my son. As long as we find him, he will come back obediently." The sky was about to break, and the gunshots in Green Valley town finally stopped. The stubborn enemies were all dead. Lu Cheng took over Green Valley town and ordered the soldiers to clean up the battlefield. He restrained the troops from harming any residents. The residents who had not slept the whole night walked on the streets in fear. They listened to the new owner of the town, Lu Cheng, give a speech in the square. He promised the safety of everyone's lives and property and comforted the residents. Invasion of Green Valley Town mission. The players who chose the defense camp all failed the mission and were dejected. The battle last night was very intense and crazy. Many players wanted to continue. Han Xiao also received the mission experience. No matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. He crossed his arms and leaned against a house, waiting for Lu Cheng to finish his speech. Beside him were Mad Blade, Angry Sword, and Port Bun Beat Dog. Mad Blade Angry Sword was not in a good mood. He was very sad that he could not have Han Xiao to himself. Port Bun Beat Dog came over and asked curiously, "I know you. You appeared in Galaxy Times. You are a professional player." "Oh." Mad Blade Angry Sword's reaction was cold. "Have you been following Black Phantom?" Port Bun Beat Dog asked curiously. Mad Blade, Angry Sword, did not want to talk to Port Bun Beat Dog, but as a professional player, he had to pay attention to his image. He could not be too cold, so he nodded. Do you know where he came from? His real name is Han Xiao. Mad Blade, Angry Sword said casually. He then reacted and quickly turned his head. Seeing that Han Xiao beside him did not respond, he continued. He used to serve in Star Dragon. I don't know the details, but I know that he is related to a camp called Star Dragon Homeland Strategic Defense Bureau. Port Bun Beat Dog's eyes lit up. What he wanted to do was to find out the origin of Black Phantom. Mad Blade Angry Sword was the longest follower, so he knew important material that others did not know. He valued it very much. He smiled and said, "Let me introduce myself. I'm a video game producer." Frenzied Sword was stunned for a moment. Now that the name was mentioned, he finally remembered why Bun Hit Dog's ID looked so familiar. It turned out that Bun Hit Dog was the author of the XX Adventure Diaries series. When he played Tale of Wuxia in the past, he had also seen Bun Hit Dog's Tale of Wuxia Adventure Diaries. "Oh, it's you." Mad Blade Angry Sword's face turned serious. He put away his impatience and received Port Bun's friend request at the same time. He accepted it immediately. Only with status and fame would people take them seriously. If they were just casual players, Frenzied Sword would not have cared. However, with fame, it was a different story. Port Bun Beat Dog said, "I'm going to move to Galaxy and make a series. The first episode will be based on the origin of Black Phantom and explore this character's experience and identity. I hope you can give me some material and also appear in the video. We could do the show together." Han Xiao never talked about his origin. Port Bun Beat Dog set Mad Blade Angry Sword as his target. Sure, Mad Blade Angry Sword agreed. This was a win-win situation. If a professional player participated in the show, it would also increase their fame and exposure. Listening to the two of them discussing behind his back, Han Xiao did not stop them. Mad Blade Angry Sword's knowledge of him was limited. This information could be divulged, and it could also arouse more players' curiosity about him. It was not enough to just keep them in suspense. He had to give them some real information from time to time. This was the reason why he brought Port Bun Beat Dog. After comforting the residents of Green Valley Town, Liu Cheng threw the matter to his assistant and came to Han Xiao. He said sincerely, "Black Phantom, thank you for your help. Otherwise, I would not have been able to take down Green Valley Town. It's a pity that Balls has escaped." "Oh, I killed him." Liu Cheng's face froze. He slowly nodded. "I'm very grateful. You really don't want any reward?" Han Xiao laughed and changed the topic. "Did you notice the strangeness of the refugees?" At the mention of this, Liu Cheng's face became very interesting. He said in disbelief, "This group of refugees can all come back from the dead. It's unbelievable. I thought they were just normal people. The world is so big. There are so many strange things." Liu Cheng did not want to let the refugees join the battle, but the players acted on their own. He quickly discovered the unique characteristic of the players being able to revive. He was shocked. Only then did he understand what Han Xiao meant. This group of people was too special. He had underestimated them. He finally understood why this group of people were not afraid of death. It was because they could not die. Port Bun Beat Dog, who was beside them, suddenly felt that this conversation was a little strange. "Refugees? Are you referring to the players? Why would the NPCs think that the revival of the players is strange? Shouldn't they just ignore it?" Han Zhao's eyes flashed. He pulled Liu Cheng to the side. He did not want the players to hear the following conversation. "Black Phantom, do you know the origin of this group of refugees?" Liu Cheng asked in surprise. Han Zhao's tone was natural. "I don't know, but I know that they are very hardworking and only care about profit. Didn't you take down Green Valley Town? You need people to build it. This group of refugees is the best labor force. You can give them missions, jobs. But some of the refugees were my enemies before. They're my enemies. They did not help Balsas because they were loyal. You could treat them as mercenaries." Chapter 161. Han Xiao smiled and said meaningfully, "Time will give you the answer." Liu Cheng nodded. He temporarily suppressed his doubts about the refugees and prepared to ask his subordinates to investigate. He then took the initiative to invite Han Shao to his territory, Black Pine Settlement. Black Phantom said that he did not want any reward, but Lu Cheng did not dare to take it seriously. He had to show his good intentions. Han Shao agreed, because he wanted to interact more with Lu Cheng. He had checked on the darknet before and found out that Lu Cheng was a very powerful rogue warlord in the southern continent. Black Pine Settlement was very large, and Green Valley Town paled in comparison. Black Pine was located in the ruins of a small city from the old era and had been transformed into a settlement. There were tens of thousands of residents living in it, and it had a lot of facilities. There was even a biological research center and a weapons research center. There was a difference between a rogue warlord and a rogue settlement. The two concepts were different. A settlement was where rogues spontaneously gathered together to defend against dangers in the wild. Generally, a reliable leader was elected democratically. The structure was loose, and there was basically no hierarchy. Warlords were more like lords. They spent resources to build a settlement and could take in scattered groups of rogues. They would charge a certain fee and then provide shelter. The fee could be in the form of taxes or labor. They would purposefully develop armed forces to defend the settlement and attack other warlords. Most of the armed forces were mercenaries, but there were also rogues who volunteered to join the army. Warlords and settlements were scattered all over the continent. There were many of them, and some of them were large and some were small. One of the goals of Bennett Sanctuary was to integrate all the rogues and build a new city that was independent of the Six Nations. It would provide shelter to all the refugees and naturally conflict with the warlords. As a main storyline, this was a very big project. Bennett's plan was like a big shelter. The sanctuary was not only to avoid war, but also the dangers in the wild. Lu Cheng invited Han Shao to get on the bus and headed to Black Pine. The players in Green Valley Town could still get missions from the town. Those who chose the defense camp were pleasantly surprised to find that their favorability with Green Valley Town did not decrease. They all breathed a sigh of relief and watched Black Phantom leave. When they first arrived, there were only 2 people. Now, there was one more person, Pork Bun and Beat Dog. Everyone squeezed onto the military transport vehicle. The scenery outside the window flew by. Han Shao made a call and asked the pilot of the Darknet helicopter to wait for him at Black Pine Settlement. He told Lu Cheng about this matter, and Lu Cheng said that he would let them pass and leave a landing pad. Han Shao and Lu Cheng were casually chatting when he suddenly asked, "With your armed forces, you could have attacked as soon as you arrived at the town. The refugees wouldn't have been able to stop you. Why did you give bosses time to prepare?" Lu Cheng shook his head. At that time, he didn't know that players could be resurrected. Only people without faith think that killing can solve all problems. The lives of your subordinates are also lives. Han Shao smiled. The strong should protect the weak. Lu Cheng paused for a moment before saying, "I won't slaughter unarmed refugees. The tragedy of Laubert is a lesson for all warlords." The Robert Potter tragedy? What's that? The one who asked the question was Pork Bun Beat Dog. He was still recording the material. Lu Cheng thought that Mad Blade and Pork Bun were Han Zhao subordinates. For the sake of Han Shao, he explained, Laubert was once a large settlement of wanderers in the western continent. It was invaded by a warlord. The warlord of Laubert won the hearts of the people, so the residents spontaneously helped to resist. Unfortunately, the enemy was too strong, and the settlement was still conquered. The warlord was angry that the residents retaliated, so he massacred the unarmed residents, stole all the resources, and burned down the settlement. Tens of thousands of wanderers died. Pork Bun Beat Dog did not think much of it. In real history, such massacres had happened countless times. He asked, and then, the warlord who massacred the hundreds of mercenaries who carried out the massacre were all killed by a super in one night 20 days later. After that, no warlord dared to kill the innocent anymore. Pork Bun Beat Dog was stunned. Why? Han Shao continued the conversation and said calmly, "Because there are some people who call themselves superheroes. If this was a normal world, people would not be able to resist violence. Even if they were angry at the perpetrators, they would not be able to do anything. However, the Blue Star had superpowers, and there were no laws in this chaotic world. Those with power could become law enforcers, and some supers who were unhappy had the power to kill people. The actions of these superheroes set artificial boundaries for the forces in the wilderness, forming a code of law that was based on common sense. What was common sense? From a moral point of view, it was something that most people felt was too much. Unless there was no loophole in the massacres, sooner or later, there would be supers who called themselves friends of justice coming to find them. This could also be considered a form of moral kidnapping. Because I am strong enough, you have to follow my morals. In essence, the law of the jungle was still the law of the jungle, but it allowed the wilderness to have a set of rough rules that indirectly protected the lives of the wanderers. Port Bun Beat Dog hurriedly recorded the material. He liked this kind of world news, as it could enrich the content of his videos. Han Xiao stroked his chin. The tragedy of Robert Potter reminded him of a wild boss. In the ruins of Robert Potter, the burnt corpses were not buried, and wild beasts were attracted to them. A new type of virus grew in the corpses and spread out. The land and water in a large area were contaminated, and the wild beasts that entered the area mutated. Every once in a while, a new Beast King wild boss would appear, which could trigger a mission to kill it. I remember that the reward was the mutated heart of the boss. If given to a biological research group, they could make potions that increased attributes and had a chance of awakening rare talents. Every once in a while, a wild boss would appear, and the players could kill it repeatedly. Repetitive actions were indispensable in the game, such as missions, farming monsters, and dungeons. Speaking of which, there were a few types of dungeons. The first was a special setting where monsters would continuously spawn, such as certain magical secret realms or technological simulation battle rooms. Apart from these special spaces, in the real world of Galaxy, there were also important areas where forces were stationed, large-scale battlefields, and so on that could be used as dungeons. These dungeons were full of randomness and could be closed at any time. The second type was the Dungeon Crystal. This was a special item that could be dropped through special missions, and only the players could use it. It allowed them to enter a parallel space where they could go back in time and participate in events that happened in the past. The scenes that the Dungeon Crystal could enter were all different, and it was related to the mission that dropped the Dungeon Crystal. The missions that rewarded the Dungeon Crystal could be repeated once in a while, and it was a dungeon that the players could steadily clear. There was also a record of the time it took to clear the dungeon, as well as a leaderboard for the various dungeons. Using the Dungeon Crystal would appear as a sudden disappearance in the eyes of others. The user would enter a parallel space where they would not be able to affect the outside world, but they would be able to gain something from the dungeon. This was similar to the technology of space warp devices and teleportation spells, and it could even be used to reverse time. Han Xiao did not know if he could use the Dungeon Crystal, as he felt that it was very risky. He did not know the principle behind the Dungeon Crystal. If it could be broken up into molecules and reassembled into a body, the players could be resurrected, and he would be dead. Some special items could only be used by the players, such as the superpower gene awakening fluid sold in the shop, which would appear out of thin air after purchase. Han Xiao also obtained the gene blending fluid from the Rose Militant mission, which could be obtained through the interface. The Dungeon Crystal was also such an item. It's better not to take the risk, and try using the Dungeon Crystal. Han Xiao was helpless. To be honest, it was a waste of time for him to farm for the Dungeon Crystal. It was more reliable to complete the main mission and hidden mission. The fleet traveled for a few hours, and the outline of Black Pine Settlement appeared in the distance. It was huge, like a miniature version of a city, and it had a wilderness vibe. There were bricks, animal skins, and ferocious-looking scrap metal. The electrified wire fence on the wall showed signs of rust, and a dirt road surrounded by wire fences was the only way to the main gate. There were many burn marks on the metal gate. Welcome to Black Pine. Chapter 162. It's huge, Port Bun exclaimed. This isn't a scene for newbies, right? The gate slowly opened, and the car drove in. The first thing they saw was a series of watchtowers, sandbag positions, and barracks. Fully armed soldiers stood guard and patrolled, and further in was the residential area. The layout of the buildings was more casual, not as strict as the city planning, and there were no tall buildings. The family car drove through the streets, and there were hawkers and residents shopping. It was like a small city. The car stopped, and they got out. Lu Cheng ordered people to prepare a banquet. Since he invited Han Xiao as a guest, he naturally had to do his part as a host. He brought Han Xiao and the other two to look around. From time to time, residents would smile and greet Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng had a lot of prestige here. That's my arsenal. I have a special assembly line to make guns and ammunition. Lu Cheng pointed to a controlled area surrounded by barbed wire. That was his warehouse, workshop, and weapons research institute. The chimney was spewing industrial exhaust. There was a second quarantine area on the other side. There were many tents inside, and there were about a few hundred wanderers living there. Their exposed skin was gray and cracked, like cracked stones. Pork Bun asked curiously, "What is that place?" Lu Cheng sighed. "It's a quarantine area for the critically ill. Residents with the grouper plague have to live there to prevent infection." Grouper plague? Han Xiao was surprised. This disease was very contagious, and it was mutated in version 2.0. He did not expect to see it here. Just as he was about to speak, there was a sudden change in the quarantine area for the critically ill. A sick resident suddenly ran crazily toward the barbed wire, trying to climb out. The next second, gunshots rang out. The guards at the side reacted quickly and opened fire with their submachine guns, turning the escaping resident into a sieve. He fell to the ground dead, and there was sticky yellow pus in the pool of blood. A few doctors in white isolation suits walked out, put the corpse into a body bag, and sprayed disinfectant on the ground. The guards who shot the escaping patient put away their guns, expressionless, as if they had just killed a chicken. The patients in the quarantine area looked at this scene in silence. Their faces were numb, and the thick atmosphere of despair was like a gloomy black cloud. It's very difficult to treat people who are ill. In order to prevent them from infecting more people, we can only control them strictly, Lu Cheng explained. Han Xiao turned his head to look. The nearby residents were all used to it and did not show any signs of disgust. "How cold-blooded," Pork Bun muttered softly. Lu Cheng said faintly, "Originally, there were only a dozen people who were sick. One of the patients knew that he couldn't be cured and escaped from the quarantine area. So now, the number of patients has increased to more than 300. Pork Bun was rendered speechless. "You have triggered the mission source of the grouper plague. Mission introduction. The Black Pine settlement is plagued by the grouper plague. What do you think you can do to stop the spread?" Mission requirements. 1. Find the source of the grouper plague. 2. Containing the spread of the plague. 3. Kill all plague victims. Reward. Requirement 1. 20,000 EXP. Requirement 2. 40,000 EXP. Requirement 3. 60,000 EXP. Requirement 1. 20,000 EXP. Requirement 2. 40,000 EXP. Requirement 3. 60,000 EXP. After all requirements are met, Black Pine Settlement will be rewarded with 800 favorability. Rogue Guard Tactical Set. Mad Blade and Pork Bun both triggered the mission. However, Han Xiao was not prepared to do this mission. He was still in a hurry to bring more leaks. No, bring more new players into the mechanic class. There were more than 10 beginner villages to do business, and there was a huge wave of experience waiting to be harvested. Time was tight, and the mission was important. How could he stop moving forward? By the way, if the players complete the mission, can I get the reward? Han Zhao's eyes sparkled. He looked at Mad Blade and Angry Sword, who did not notice anything, and a new idea popped up in his mind. My people have prepared the banquet. Lu Cheng sent out an invitation, and a few of them came to the central building of Black Pine. It was similar to a small castle, and the western part was called the Lord's Hall. The banquet's food was huge, and the Black Pine settlement had planned fields to grow food crops. There was also a special slaughterhouse to breed animals that could be eaten, such as hairy cows, pheasants, and black-haired short-nosed pigs. The Wanderer camp consumed a lot of resources every day. If they only relied on the high price of goods sold on the darknet, they would not be able to bear the cost. Therefore, the residents were self-sufficient, like a small territory. During the banquet, Han Xiao and Lu Cheng chatted casually. Lu Cheng once again brought up the issue of payment. He had always owed Black Phantom a favor, and this made him feel uneasy. Just treat it as me making a friend. If you need anything in the future, feel free to look for me. I can help. Han Xiao left his phone number. He wanted to keep in touch with Lu Cheng so that he could know when the 4 Blueprints mission would be activated. He thought about it and said, "Speaking of which, I need a little help from you. I need to borrow the workshop and some materials to make some things." "No problem. I'll get someone to arrange it." Lu Cheng felt relieved. He only felt relieved when Han Xiao made a request. The grouper plague has appeared in your territory. If it is not solved quickly, it may lead to a disaster. My friend will stay to help you. Han Xiao slapped Mad Blade's back, causing him to spit out the food in his mouth and cough nonstop. Mad Blade could not believe it. "Are you abandoning me? I'm not interested in your mother." Han Xiao resisted the urge to curse out loud. He wrote a few missions and gave them to Mad Blade and Pork Bun. The general content of these few missions was for the two of them to stay in Black Pine to solve the plague problem and increase the favorability of the Black Pine faction. Han Xiao spent a total of 200,000 EXP per day and divided it equally between the two of them. They were all relatively long-term missions, and he planned to keep the two of them in Black Pine. There was no need to bring the 2 players with him for the next trip to the Novice Village. It was inconvenient to go online and offline, and it would slow him down. It was better to leave the 2 in Black Pine to do missions. The potential players he chose were not only nurtured by himself, but there was also another benefit. They could follow him and come into contact with high-level forces before other players. They could explore the map before other players. This was also one of the main reasons why players followed him. Letting the potential players do other missions and nurturing them extensively would help them develop their own characteristics. It would also allow him to have time to do other things alone. Moreover, a portion of the potential player's rewards would go into his pocket sooner or later. If Mad Blade completed the plague mission, Han Xiao would also get some EXP. He would also take a portion of the money he earned to buy equipment from him. Not only did he have to earn money from players, but he also had to earn money from NPCs through players. If Han Xiao himself was an aircraft carrier, the players he brought along would be like a fleet of fighter jets. No matter how great the results were, they would still have to return to their nest in the end. Of course, the premise was that he had to always show greater benefits. In this aspect, he was very confident. Besides the players themselves, no one understood the players better than him. "I'm really a business genius." Han Xiao sighed. Shameless. Mad Blade had no choice but to agree. He had no room to refuse. He was actually quite satisfied. Black Pine was a high-level scene, and the mission rewards were not bad. Pork Bun was even more indifferent about fighting dogs. He had already recorded enough material. If he stayed in Black Pine, he would not have to worry about losing Han Xiao. He could focus on making the first video. Lu Cheng felt that Mad Blade and Pork Bun's abilities were very average and would not be of much help. However, for Han Xiao's sake, he still expressed his gratitude. After finalizing the next plan at the dining table, it was already afternoon. Lu Cheng went to rest. He had not slept during the battle the previous night, and he had rushed back in the morning. He was exhausted. Han Xiao slept in the car for a while and was full of energy. He could move freely in Black Pine. Hence, he went to find the pilot of the Darknet helicopter and gave him a few instructions. He then made a call to the Fabian company to arrange for the rental of the transport aircraft. He also negotiated with Antonio for more than 10 minutes. After that, he was led by the Black Pine guards to the workshop of the munitions factory. The guards there had received Lu Cheng's order to open the workshop for Han Xiao to use. Lu Cheng had already asked someone to prepare the materials. Han Xiao started to work on the lathe. He had to repair the magnetically controlled armor and replenish some ammo and basic energy storage cubes. After that, he had to build some new small pieces of machinery. It was just the right time to build the sunworm flamethrower that he had just fused. With his intelligence attribute reaching 200, the construction speed of the machinery was very fast. Furthermore, With the enhancement of machinery affinity and energy attribute, the machinery he built would have better attributes. Sunworm portable flamethrower type. Small flamethrower quality. Blue. High quality. Basic attributes. 27 to 34 fire damage /S. 60 seconds of overload. 20 seconds of cooldown before it can be used again. 7 meters of burn range. 92 energy output fuel type. HF concentrated liquid fuel energy. 210. 1 energy /S cost. 1 energy /S. Weight. 9. 4 pounds additional effect. Integrated. The fuel tank has been processed and embedded in the main body, making it convenient to carry around. Additional effect. Concentrated jet. Increases fuel efficiency. Attack power plus 33%. Attack range plus 25%. Burn damage chance change to once every 0.6 seconds. Last for 12 seconds. 8 energy /S cost. 8 energy /S. Overload after 10 seconds and enters cooldown. Additional effect. Sticky burn. Extends the duration of the target's burn and increases the severity of the burn. Remarks. The dancing flames are the warmth of love. Chapter 163. The nozzle, conduit, and fuel tank of the Sunworm were combined into one. It looked like an insulating metal pipe that was about 20 centimeters long. It was as wide as a vambrace and could be tied to one's arms and calves. It looked like a beetle, and its chelicerae were rows of leather and metal buckles. He wore the Sunworm on the inside of his left forearm. It looked a little bloated, but he could ignore it since he had 69 points of strength. The Sunworm is most suitable to be used as a mecha module. It can be integrated into my self-made, lightweight mecha. Han Xiao was still thinking about lightweight mechas, and he already had an idea. He had booked the Fabian Corporation's transport plane and could build a lightweight mecha while he was in the newbie village. At this time, a white-haired Asian man walked over and stared at Han Xiao's ghost sniper rifle. He said in surprise, "You didn't see wrongly. This is an electromagnetic weapon." He then turned to look at Han Xiao and asked, "Do you want to sell this gun? I'm willing to pay 500,000, no, 1 million. Han Xiao sized him up and had an idea. He pretended not to know and asked, "Who are you?" "I'm Lei Jinyu, the chief consultant of mechanical technology invited by Lu Cheng. You seem to be a mechanic too. You should have heard of my name." Han Xiao did not respond. "Don't tell me you haven't heard of my name before. Are you a self-taught mechanic? That's rare." Lei Jinyu was surprised. He shook his head and asked directly, "I want this electromagnetic gun. Name a price." "Do I look like I lack money?" Han Xiao pointed at the expensive parts on the lathe. Lei Jinyu's eyes lit up. "You're a self-taught mechanic, so I can teach you. In exchange for this gun, you definitely need a master like me to guide you. You can only follow the advice of your seniors and not go down the wrong path. I can see that you actually want to learn from a master. I'm here, and I'm open to you. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If you miss it, you will regret it for the rest of your life." He did not know that this electromagnetic sniper rifle was made by Han Xiao. In his impression, self-taught mechanics were all very bad, so he wanted to teach Han Xiao in exchange for this sniper rifle. He was a master mechanic, and he would not teach normal people even if they wanted to learn. He wanted to give Han Xiao a precious opportunity. As long as Han Xiao knew what was good for him, he felt that it was more than enough to exchange for the electromagnetic sniper rifle. Han Xiao's eyes twitched. This was the first time he had heard such shameless self-praise. He was almost as good as him. In fact, Han Xiao knew Lei Jinyu's background. This guy was very famous in the Blue Stars mechanic world. He was a very high-level mechanic, and it was not wrong to call him a master. He was from the same era as Old Man Lu. He was active a few decades ago and had retired long ago. He was like Old Man Lu and did not have the demeanor of a master. Han Xiao knew why Lei Jinyu appeared in Black Pine. Speaking of which, it was related to Old Man Lu's 4 Blueprints mission. Lei Jinyu happened to be part of this complicated hidden mission. Back then, Lu Cheng left his daughter, who was only a few years old, to be raised by Old Man Lu. He entered the wilderness and became a warlord. Because of this, Old Man Lu quarreled with him. He could not understand Lu Cheng's choice. The relationship between father and son was very stiff. Lu Cheng became a powerful warlord in the southern continent step by step and faced all kinds of dangers. On the surface, old man Lu did not want to have any contact with his son. In fact, he was secretly watching Lu Cheng. He asked his old friend Lei Zhenyu to come to Black Pine to help and protect Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng knew nothing about this. He was very surprised that he could invite a master to take care of the munitions factory. When the 4 blueprints were about to start, Lei Zhenyu had to leave Black Pine. Old man Lu helped Lu Cheng in another way. He did not want to see Lu Cheng in an awkward situation, so he left the blueprints and left the western capital. His whereabouts were unknown. Maybe this is my father. Han Xiao sighed. Why was Zhu Ziqing's back view a classic? It was because people who experienced it would resonate with it. Even an old man like old man Lu was worried about it. Suppressing his emotions, Han Xiao calmed down and said, I can exchange with you. I want the advanced knowledge. According to his memory, Lei Zhenyu knew the advanced knowledge, but players could not learn it from him. He wanted to give it a try. Lei Zhenyu said, Young man, don't bite off more than you can chew. You are a self-taught mechanic. Your level is not high enough to understand the advanced knowledge. I will teach you something else. No, I only want the advanced knowledge. Lei Zhenyu said, but you can't understand it. That's good. You don't have to worry about me learning it. I will just look at it for an hour. Just treat it as me being curious. Lei Zhenyu was speechless. The advanced knowledge was very precious. It was a top secret, and it was not easily taught. It was crucial to control the source of the knowledge. Although he was curious about the structure of the electromagnetic gun, it was not valuable enough to exchange for the advanced knowledge. Even if Han Xiao said that he could not understand it, he did not want to take the risk. Lei Zhenyu hesitated for a while and did not give up. I can't teach you the advanced knowledge, but I can use the advanced knowledge to create a machine to exchange with you. Sure enough, it was not easy to obtain the advanced knowledge. Han Xiao was already mentally prepared, so he was not upset. Instead, he thought about Lei Zhenyu's suggestion. If he used the machine that he knew how to create to exchange for a new machine of the same level, it would not be a loss. However, the ghost sniper rifle that he had with him was an improved version. He still needed to use it, so he planned to create a new one to exchange with Lei Zhenyu. Han Xiao nodded and agreed to this suggestion. I will create a new one for you. You made this gun? Lei Zhenyu was shocked. He saw that Han Xiao was a stranger and that he was a self-taught mechanic. He thought that the gun was made by someone else. He did not expect that he was wrong. The 6 nations were all secretly developing electromagnetic weapons, and they had not even passed the experimental stage. Just the fact that Han Xiao could create an electromagnetic weapon that was barely stable meant that he was on the same level as him. Lei Zhenyu thought about how he had called himself a master, and even with his old face, he felt a little embarrassed. He actually dared to put on airs in front of a mechanic on the same level. It was too embarrassing. Luckily, Lei Zhenyu was thick-skinned. He quickly put away the contempt in his heart and corrected his attitude. He saw Han Xiao as an existence on the same level as him. At this time, a guard hurriedly walked over and whispered in his ear that Han Xiao was also a legendary assassin. Lei Zhenyu was shocked. He looked at Han Xiao from head to toe. There were many mechanics who knew how to research, but those who could fight were rare. His respect for Han Xiao went up another level. With strength, he would be valued no matter where he went. Please come with me. I will show you my storage room. Lei Zhenyu coughed and quickly changed the topic to ease the awkwardness. There was a hint of respect in his tone. The two of them came to the forbidden area in the munitions factory. This was the living room of the high-level researchers. Lei Zhenyu's room was a spacious suite. It had all the daily necessities, including a wine cabinet and a bookcase. They were all handmade with maroon high-quality wood. They were expensive. There was even a simple small lathe in the corner of the room. Lei Zhenyu opened the wine cabinet and activated the secret door. The wine cabinet slid open, revealing a secret storage room. He called Han Xiao in. There were glass cabinets against the wall. They were filled with mechanical equipment. Lei Zhenyu went straight to the innermost cabinet. I have 4 pieces of equipment made with advanced knowledge. Let me introduce them to you. Lei Zhenyu pointed at the glass cabinets, and started talking. Lei Zhenyu's advanced knowledge was focused on micro-modification. These 4 advanced machines were all related to nano. Nurse Type I, biological particle. It looked like a thick black gel, but it was actually a decomposed special nanoparticle. It could be injected into the body. When injured, poisoned, or bleeding, it could quickly get rid of negative effects, remove toxins, and speed up blood coagulation. It was a consumable used in medical treatment. U9 colloidal bulletproof film. It looked like transparent glass. When hit, it would temporarily solidify to offset the kinetic energy. It would then solidify and clamp the object. For example, when a bullet was shot, it would be clamped in an instant. It was as if the bullet was originally inside. It looked like transparent amber. It had high defensive properties and was not easy to damage. It was suitable to be made into a bulletproof vest. Firmalo condensate. It looked like a pile of shaving cream foam. It was used to cool down the interior of the machine and reduce the cool-down time of the machine. It would then degrade quickly without blocking the operation of the machine's internal components. For example, the sunworm's cool-down time was 20 seconds. Firmalo condensate could reduce the cool-down time to 3 to 5 seconds. The effect was obvious. It was also a consumable. PE0 nano artificial fiber. It looked like a biological tendon. It was completely black with a smooth surface. It was very tough. It was a nanomaterial. When twisted and stretched, it would produce elasticity that far exceeded its volume. Chapter 164. After pondering for a while, Han Xiao made a decision. I want the PE0 nanosynthetic fiber. You really know your stuff. I thought a warrior like you, who often goes on the battlefield, would choose the bulletproof membrane. Lei Zhenyu was slightly surprised. Pardon me for asking, but what do you want the fiber for? To build something? I need enough PE0. Okay. Lei Zhenyu nodded. He felt that the PE0 nanosynthetic fiber had the highest potential value among the 4 machines. The new material could be used with more machines. He secretly praised Han Xiao for being a high-level mechanic. His eyes were sharp. After confirming the exchange, Han Xiao returned to the workshop and began to build the new Ghost sniper rifle. With the blueprint as a reference, everything was going smoothly. This exchange is worth a lot. Exchanging an incomplete electromagnetic gun for a new nanomaterial filled an important part of his lightweight mech design. The PE0 nanosynthetic fiber could be used as the tendons and bones of the lightweight mech. Compared to the basic K600 endoskeleton, the PE0 had a huge improvement in all aspects. It was small in size, light in weight, and had a lot of extra strength. It was also the core material of an excellent lightweight mech. Viper lightweight mech. Although the PE0's introduction was simple, when used as an endoskeleton, it was as flexible as a muscle. As for the other 3 machines, 2 were consumables, so he directly eliminated them. The bulletproof membrane was not bad, but he had the platinum alloy, so it was barely enough for the bulletproof function. After building a new Ghost sniper rifle, Lei Zhenyu also brought enough PE0 nanofibers and put them in a metal box. The 2 exchanged items. Lei Zhenyu held the Ghost sniper rifle lovingly. Although the direction of his research was more towards micro-machines, electromagnetic weapons were the blueprint for the next generation of conventional weapons. He also wanted to research it. Back then, Old Man Liu privately asked him to come to Black Pine to help Liu Cheng. Lei Zhenyu owed him a favor and could only come to this settlement to help. He had been bored. Today, he met Han Xiao, who was at the same level as him, and exchanged interesting machines. Lei Zhenyu was in a much better mood. I need one more thing, but I don't have the means to buy it. I hope you can help me buy a bonfire mini-reactor. Han Xiao put away the box and spoke again. The thing he wanted was also a module related to mecha. Lei Zhenyu was a master mechanic. He knew many people in the same field and had many connections. If Han Xiao wanted to create machines with knowledge other than advanced material science, he could just buy them from Lei Zhenyu. That thing is not easy to get. Even if my friend in Ordina only charges me the cost price, it would still cost 2 to 3 million, and it would take some time to make it. Money is not a problem. Han Xiao chuckled confidently. Lei Zhenyu was a master in the mechanic world and knew many mechanics of the same level. He was very friendly to Han Xiao and promised to help him contact the seller of the bonfire mini reaction furnace. To him, it was just a matter of a few phone calls. After exchanging numbers, Lei Zhenyu took the new Ghost sniper rifle and left. Han Xiao continued to work in the workshop until midnight. He finally finished all the work, turned off the lights, and left. He followed the guards to his temporary residence. In the dead of the night, there was no nightlife in Black Pine Settlement. Once night fell, the residents would go home to rest. In the dangerous wilderness, they needed to maintain their energy to deal with any accidents that might happen at any time. Entertainment was very extravagant. Surviving in the wilderness, wild beasts, diseases, hunger, all kinds of disasters made the wanderers develop the vigilance to prepare for a rainy day. Some of the survivors of the war from the old era were forced to join the Six Nations to make a living. Some had always lived in the wilderness and could not forget the hatred of their country. No matter how hard life was, they would not compromise. Some people thought this was stupid, but some people thought it was a belief or even a belief. No matter which country they were from, loving their country was worthy of respect. The more important reason was that many wanderers were used to living in the wilderness. Although their meals were not stable and they did not know when they would be full, there were no restrictions. Freedom was like the intoxicating fragrance of flowers. After tasting it, some people were not willing to give up their freedom, even though they knew that joining the Six Nations would give them food and clothing. In the peaceful era, many people were numb to life. But now, in order to survive, they were like their ancestors, eating raw meat and drinking blood. Every day was full and lively. Most wanderers were thin and sallow, but their physical fitness was much better than the city residents. They were strong and hardworking. The wilderness was seen as a wasteland. Many abandoned cities and battlefields were occupied by plants and wild beasts. There was also the radiation zone caused by war. It was a forbidden land for life. The Six Nations did not have the intention to expand the wilderness at the moment. The cost was too high, and the value was not high. In the first few years after the war, the Six Nations focused on stabilizing the domestic environment and did not have the spare resources to expand their territory. So, all kinds of forces grew wild in the wasteland, forming the structure of wanderers, warlords, and large financial groups. Just like the wind that blew after everything was destroyed, the wasteland after the war once again lit up with a weak flame of order. The next morning, Han Xiao brought Mad Blade, Angry Sword, and Pork Bun to him. I'm going to leave for a while. You guys stay in Black Pine. I'll contact you again. Pork Bun did not respond to Angry Sword, but Mad Blade and Angry Sword were reluctant to leave. They had only hugged his thigh for a few days, and now they were going to be abandoned again. You guys can think of a way to deal with the plague in Black Pine. Han Xiao pointed at Mad Blade and said, I'm very optimistic about the potential you've shown. Maybe you have the ability to use better weapons. Han Xiao took out 2 new large-caliber pistols. The Kroger SPX model was suitable for a range of 80 meters. It was green quality and was twice as powerful as the pistols Han Xiao sold to other players. He handed them to Mad Blade and Angry Sword. These are for me? Mad Blade asked in disbelief. Han Xiao nodded with a smile. Mad Blade was pleasantly surprised. He played with the 2 pistols in his hands. He did not expect to receive such benefits. Han Xiao actually gave him equipment. Pork Bun's mouth was wide open. Was this also the benefit of the hidden quest? As long as you perform well, Black Phantom will give you benefits from time to time. Han Xiao had specially made these 2 pistols so that Mad Blade and Angry Sword could do more missions. If a worker wanted to do a good job, he had to sharpen his tools first. Also, when he was giving out benefits, he could record Pork Bun beating Angry Sword. Once it was made into a video, more players would see this scene. They would know that the benefits here were good, and they would yearn for his hidden quest even more. All he had to give was handguns that could be easily made and a little bit of generosity. It was a win-win situation. I think you have a lot of potential in fighting. You should learn some close combat skills. Han Xiao said. Mad Blade was talented in fighting and was suitable for becoming a mechanical pugilist. He naturally hoped that Mad Blade could be as strong as he was in his previous life. A mechanical pugilist could also use Mad Blade's talent in the pugilist class, probably. Frenzied, Sword nodded in agreement. What Han Xiao said was exactly what he was thinking. After giving out all the orders, Han Xiao boarded the Darknet helicopter and left Black Pine. Black Phantom has left, the assistant reported to Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng nodded. He had a good impression of Han Xiao. He said, "Take good care of his two friends. Also, pay attention to the strange refugees in Green Valley Town. Find out where they came from." He took the helicopter to Fabian's stronghold and switched to a transport plane to head to the next novice village in the southern continent. This time, he was chartering a long-term flight. He even had to cross the ocean to the novice villages in the western and northern continents. Fabian's influence in the other two continents was not as big, so the price of chartering a flight was very expensive. Even if Antonio gave him a discount, the price would still make normal players stunned. He still had plenty of money in his Darknet account. He had all kinds of ways to make money, so he was not worried about running out of money. On the plane, Han Xiao started to officially create his own mechanical suit. One of the benefits of creating a mechanical suit was that the various modules could be created separately, then finally tested and linked together. This way, risks could be avoided, and the success rate of self-creation would be much higher. Although he did not have a blueprint, he had his own ideas. The various functions of the self-created mech could be imitated according to the other mechs in his memory. Viper Light Mech was a standard advanced rare equipment. If one wanted to obtain this blueprint through normal means, they would need to fuse 4 advanced knowledge combinations. The requirements were very strict. The prerequisite was to understand the blueprints of the various components, so players could only try their luck. Chapter 165. Hopefully, the replica will be 40% effective. That should be enough. Han Xiao did not have enough advanced knowledge, so he could only make a prototype with fewer functions like the Ghost Sniper Rifle. However, there was an advantage to creating a mech. Even if he created a prototype, it would not have the same limitations as the Ghost Sniper Rifle. Creating a self-made mech was a huge project that could not be completed in a short time. Han Xiao planned to complete the various modules when he ran to the newbie village. He also wanted to integrate some new blueprints to improve the functions of the mech. The core energy was the bonfire mini-reactor. He had to wait for Lei Zhenyu to order it. This was also an advanced mech, so he could not make it. Luckily, he knew other mechanics and could borrow their skills. Speaking of which, Old Man Lu's 4 blueprints were also rare items. The opportunity for the mission was to leave Black Pine, and it had not started yet. The 4 blueprints could form a set of offensive and defensive systems that could be used together with the mech. The second battle plan was the mech, and Old Man Lu's 4 blueprints could directly form the third battle plan. Han Xiao was looking forward to it. The 3 battle plans complemented each other, and the mech's attributes were very strong. Even if he faced Bennett, he would not have to be afraid. As long as I finish running to the newbie village and get a huge amount of experience, I can start to do something big. Han Xiao calculated the time and suddenly raised his eyebrows. If I remember correctly, the Inhuman incident is about to start. There are 5 newbie villages in the southern continent. Excluding Bighorn Village and Green Valley Village, Han Xiao spent 11 days running to the remaining 3 villages. Most of the time was spent on the road. Every time he reached a newbie village, players would swarm there without him doing anything. Some would change classes, and some would cause trouble. This was all due to the popularity of the Galaxy Times and forum posts. Han Xiao had left a deep impression on the players, and they all knew what to do with him. Han Xiao counted, and the number of players who chose to change their class to mechanic was between 25 to 30%. This ratio was much higher than in his previous life. Although Blue Star only had 3 main classes, the ratio was not evenly distributed. In his previous life, the ratio was 30% for Esper classes, 50 to 60% for Pugilist classes, and 10% for mechanic classes. After Han Zhao's marketing, this ratio had tripled. Other than basic knowledge, he also taught basic shooting and basic combat. The target audience for basic skills was much wider. Most players would come to learn these two basic skills. This was a main focus. Many a little makes a mickle, many grains of sand make a tower, small profits, but quick turnover. Not to mention the benefits of helping players change their class. 3 novice villages gave him a total of 23 million experience. The efficiency was astonishing. The EXP efficiency of these 11 days was comparable to more than a dozen high-difficulty bounty missions. In his previous life, players of the same level would have to spend at least a few months to accumulate that much experience. The powerful effect of the interface and the NPC template allowed him to grow at a terrifying rate. At the very least, he now had an endless source of experience points. The player market indeed had the most potential. Furthermore, he could temporarily dominate the market and create a shocking amount of profit. With a huge amount of experience points in hand, Hanshao did not say anything and immediately raised his trainee mechanic class to LV-15. His total level was now LV-55, and he needed to change his class to level up. He was still 5 levels away from the level cap of version 1.0, but he was not restricted by the level cap of this version. Hanshao was very likely to be the first person in Blue Star to reach LV-60. However, the requirements for the class change were extremely troublesome. Trainee mechanic, level up to LV-15, plus 120 energy, plus 1 DX, plus 1 END, plus 4 INT. You have received 3 free attribute points. You have received 1 potential point. Class change mission. Create 5 rare grade machines with an energy rank of not lower than 60. F***CK. What kind of luck is this? Am I that unlucky? I got one of the most troublesome class change requirements? Hanshao was stunned. Rare grade was purple, 1 level higher than blue. The machines he created now had a 15% to 20% chance of being blue, but the chances of being purple were only 1% to 2%. The quality of a machine was the horizontal difference between similar equipment. For example, a normal retractable knife would have a huge difference in attributes between white and blue equipment. Blue equipment had more additional effects, but a blue retractable knife could not be compared to a white ranger robot at all. The quality of a machine was the difference between similar equipment. For example, cold weapons, firearms, grenades, robots. The attributes of a machine were based on the template of the same type of machine. To make it easier to understand, I'll use familiar things as an example. For example, a high-quality shaver can be very smooth and comfortable when shaving, but it can't be used for cooking. That's the reason. Different types of equipment have their own functions, and each profession has its own specialization. The higher the quality of a machine, the harder it was to increase its quality. Intelligence affected the quality of the finished product, and it was the core attribute of a mechanic. It was easier for high-level mechanics to create high-quality, low-level machines. However, the class change requirement of energy rank of not lower than 60 prevented him from using low-level machines to increase the quality of the machines. He had to create purple machines that matched his level. This kind of class change requirement was known as one of the most difficult requirements, because normally, when one had just reached the upper limit of one's level, they would not be able to steadily create machines of sufficient quality. It was either to try luck or to increase one's skills or obtain talents. No matter which one it was very time-consuming. Hanzhao's face was as black as the bottom of a pot, in various ways. The class change was difficult, so he used EXP to increase his skills and fuse blueprints, especially blueprints. This was a bottomless pit of EXP. Hanshao spent almost 5 million EXP to level up 5 times in a row. Of the remaining EXP, he left 2 million for knowledge fusion and threw the rest into his skills. This time, he maxed out intermediate machinery affinity and basic refinement. Intermediate machinery affinity was the core skill, and its cost was very high, but its effect was very obvious. Machinery affinity affected the quality of the machine, which was beneficial for completing the class change mission. Experience is fleeting. It comes and goes quickly. Han Xiao let out a sigh of relief. He felt very satisfied that he had spent a huge amount of EXP in one go. After clearing the novice village in Southern Continent, Han Xiao decided to go to Western Continent. The countries in Western Continent were Maple and Ordina. He had been in Southern Continent for a long time, and now he was finally going to another continent. This time, I can do the hidden mission. The tragedy of Robert Potter happened in Western Continent, Han Xiao thought to himself. As they were going to fly across the ocean, the transport plane was parked at the airport of Hesla Port City to prepare for the long-distance flight. They had prepared enough jet fuel. This was Antonio's territory, so Han Xiao spent a lot of money and emptied Antonio's warehouse. There were a lot of materials on the plane. You're going to Western Continent. Antonio held a thick black cigar in his mouth and patted Han Xiao's shoulder with his bear-like hand. An assassin like you will definitely be on the threat list of every country. The agents of Maple and Ordina might want to have afternoon tea with you. That is not your home ground, and our influence in Western Continent is limited. Let me give you a piece of advice. Try not to show yourself. So, be careful. Han Xiao pretended to be surprised and said, "Wow, so you can finish your sentence in one sentence." Antonio was speechless. "Don't worry, I won't be reckless." Han Xiao patted Antonio's thick arm and walked onto the plane. The plane was filled with fuel, took off, and disappeared into the sky. Han Xiao went to all the novice villages in the Southern Continent and caused quite a commotion on the forums. The novice players from the other 3 continents were envious of the Southern Continent players. They wanted to meet Black Phantom too, but they could not travel across continents. They could only watch helplessly as the Southern Continent players showed off on the forums, which made them feel very uncomfortable. It was like seeing someone post pictures of delicious food in the middle of the night. No matter how jealous they were, the helpless players could only post on the forums to vent their emotions. I want Black Phantom so much. I have a disease that will kill me if I don't meet Black Phantom. Why didn't someone like Black Phantom appear in the continent I came to? The Southern Continent players laughed secretly, glad that they were born in a good place. Looking at the players from the other continents crying and acting cute, they felt a sense of superiority. Luck is also a part of strength. I'm not targeting anyone, but I'm saying that everyone here is trash. Chapter 166. In a stronghold of the Dark Net organization. Black Phantom went to the Western Continent. Where did he go? Bennett was surprised. I don't know. He didn't say. Wang Yuan shook his head. Bennett had no choice but to give Han Xiao a call, but it did not go through. Han Xiao was on a cross-ocean flight, so the signal was not good. Bennett was helpless. He had already received the material aid from Star Dragon, and Hesla had also relented after some negotiations. The sanctuary plan was going to be tested in the Southern Continent, and he was preparing to gather the strongest in the organization to protect the first step of the plan. Black Phantom was one of the first 3 invitees on the list, but before he could inform him, Han Xiao had already slipped away to the Western Continent. The location of the first sanctuary had already been chosen. It was in the ruins of a big city in the wilderness. Bennett suddenly had an idea. Maple rejected the material aid. Those bureaucrats are only amenable to force. Since Black Phantom has gone to the Western Continent, I'll let him make a statement for me. There was no light source in the confinement room. The thick metal door isolated the outside world, and only a sliver of light could be seen in the darkness. Alux curled up in a corner and looked at the interface. He wanted to cry, but no tears came out. His Esper ability was rated as Grade A, but after more than 20 days of the open beta, when the average player had reached LV8, his Esper ability was still at LV1. The German organization said that they would lock him up for a month, and they really meant it. If not for the fact that Alux did not want to give up his Esper ability with high potential, he would have changed his account. The club was very concerned when they found out about his account situation. They asked Alux to be patient and promised to invest resources in him after he was released. That was why he was able to persevere and continue to be online every day, hoping for a change. At this time, The metal door slowly opened, and white light shone in. Alux looked up and saw a Caucasian man in a white coat standing outside the door. He stared at Alux as if he was looking at a rare treasure. "I want to do a little test for you." The man in the white coat smiled nervously. Cyberlos was very happy. He was one of the upper echelons of the Germinal organization, and he was also a biological scientist. He had been conducting all kinds of experiments for the Germinal organization for many years. Before joining the Germinal organization, Cyberlos was a senior researcher who defected to Raylan. Raylan was full of crazy people, and his mind was filled with all kinds of crazy ideas. As a human, he had never been able to restrain his passion for dissecting the bodies of his own kind. He did not care about the difference between factions, and as long as someone funded his research, he would join that person. In the end, he was absorbed by the Germinal organization. Therefore, the Germinal organization provided resources and supported Cyberlos to put all kinds of crazy ideas into experiments. He was the person in charge of the Valkyries, super soldiers, genetic modification, and other unethical projects. There were also other darker experiments. Just the mention of the names was enough to make normal people feel disgusted and perverted people feel excited, such as cross-species breeding, human-beast fusion. After many years of research, Cyberlos had conducted no less than 100 experiments and seen thousands of human subjects with special talents. Among them, only 2 subjects attracted Cyberlos' interest, and they were both espers. One of them had an incredible healing effect, and it could even make a dried corpse look alive again. However, without a soul, it could not be revived. This was also the first time Cyberlos knew about the existence of souls. He had been researching enthusiastically for a long time, but unfortunately, Blue Star's technology tree was not compatible, so he did not use any experimental methods to collect any souls. The other person had some kind of ability to influence fate. By commenting on something, it could affect the cause and effect of that thing. This was the weirdest ability Cyberlos had ever seen, and it was even more difficult to explain than souls. The ability could only be activated when the person was conscious. He had tried to hypnotize them, but it was ineffective. This person was locked up 24 hours a day and wore a mask that prevented him from speaking. Due to negligence, many terrible accidents had happened. The most recent accident happened more than a year ago. This person said that disaster would befall the Germinal organization, and it came true. Now, the organization was indeed badly damaged. Electrolux was the third subject that attracted his interest. Cyberlos flipped through the observation diary. Day 1. The subject was sent to the confinement room, monitored 24 hours a day with night vision cameras, fed 3 times a day, 7 in the morning, 11 in the afternoon, and 7 in the evening. There was no time to relax. The subject showed obvious anxiety and did not show the sluggishness after brainwashing. Initial estimation is that the subject has a certain level of immunity. A compliance test is recommended. Day 2. At 8 in the morning, a compliance test was carried out. The test results showed that the subject showed very high compliance and passed all tests. There were no abnormalities in the lie detector. The subject has accepted the new identity after brainwashing. At 11 in the evening, there was a change. The subject disappeared into thin air. There were no traces of damage in the confinement room. A comprehensive search of the base was carried out, but the subject was not found. Day 4. The subject appeared again without any warning. The location was the confinement room, the same as where he disappeared. Video data, Appendix-001. We controlled the subject immediately and interrogated him about the reason for his disappearance and what happened after he disappeared. The subject said that he did not know. The interrogation was recorded in Appendix-002. Increase the intensity of monitoring of the target. Day 6. Hypnosis was used. The subject was talking nonsense. Appendix-003. At night, the subject disappeared again. Day 8. The subject appeared again. Interrogation and hypnosis again. Appendix-004 for details. At 8 in the evening, surgery was carried out to observe the physiology. There were no abnormalities in the body structure. Appendix-005. The diary was observed for 22 days. Electrolux phenomenon also appeared in some of the wanderer settlements in Andria, which attracted the attention of the Germinal organization. They did not announce it, but observed it secretly. Not dying, could revive, appeared out of thin air, unknown origin. It was not a big deal if it was only one person, but there were more than 10,000 people who had the same phenomenon, and the number was still rising. The leader took it very seriously and made Cyberlos the person in charge to carry out all kinds of experiments on Electrolux. Electrolux was sandwiched in the middle by the guards and brought to an operating room. He lay on the operating table and received the mission to cooperate with the surgery. He was brainwashed in the Germinal organization, so all the orders were compulsory missions with a certain amount of experience reward. The punishment for disobeying was very heavy. Electrolux could only listen to the orders and feel depressed. Cyberlos put on the surgical gown and started to operate on Electrolux's body. Electrolux received a notification that he was under anesthesia and could not move. He could only watch the knife cut on his body and realize that he was being dissected. As soon as the chest was opened, the system notification appeared. You died during the surgery. Electrolux was stunned. 10 seconds later, he was revived in the room. What the hell? I was dissected for research. Electrolux was stunned. He had one less chance to revive in 6 days, but his experience was not deducted. Maybe it was because the cause of death was special. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. In the virtual online games he played before, NPCs ignored the uniqueness of the players. Many people complained about this, and some even imagined that the players would be dissected for research. He did not expect it to really happen in Galaxy. Cyberlos observed the whole process. Electrolux's body disappeared, and he appeared alive. Everything happened out of thin air. The bloodstains on the operating table were still there. You? No. What kind of creature are you? Cyberlos's eyes were shining. Chapter 167. The world you're in is just a game, and I'm a player, Elux said. However, he was shocked to find that the content of his words had turned into an incoherent sentence. He did not give up and kept trying. He found that as long as he wanted to reveal any information about the real world, the system would change his words. Cyberlos shook his head helplessly. It's the same as the hypnosis record. Nonsense. Elux was stunned. Suddenly, he realized that the NPCs would notice the uniqueness of the players. It must have been deliberately simulated by the developers. So realistic. Elux was shocked. To be able to give him the illusion that the NPCs were real people, the immersion of Galaxy was off the charts. He understood the meaning of the name of Galaxy version 1.0. The developers wanted the players to become descenders and experience the feeling of joining another real world. So, they restricted the players from revealing information about reality to prevent ruining the immersion. He remembered a very old online game where the players from two factions could not chat with each other in the game due to language restrictions. It seemed to be called the World of Divine Beasts. That must be it. Elux was certain. Even if he felt that the NPC's curiosity toward the players was simulated, his eyes still lit up. Aside from his identity as a professional player, Elux himself was very interested in Galaxy. He could not wait to know what would happen next. How would the NPCs react when there were more and more players? The guards brought Elux back. Cyberlos stayed in the laboratory to collect blood from the operating table. After testing, he was no different from a normal person. His eyes flashed as he pondered. Elux's phenomenon. Let's call it the inhuman phenomenon. What is the origin of the inhuman phenomenon? Why is it spreading? Most of the Inhumans appeared out of thin air, and there are no records in the database. Could it be that a new race was born? Or is it the effect of some kind of Esper ability? Or is this the projection of a certain advanced civilization? Cyberlos turned on the computer and opened a top-secret file. After verifying his fingerprint, iris, and the password that he changed every day, he opened a document. This was a copy of the Treaty of Contact between Universal Civilizations, 7th Revision. Blue Star had come into contact with the Godora civilization and obtained a lot of knowledge about the universe. The German organization also had a copy of this treaty. It was clearly written that the projection of a higher plane entity was an evil means to interfere with the progress of a low-level civilization. The ability to not die was very similar to the description of the projection technology in the treaty. If it was true, then this would be the invasion of an advanced civilization. No, an advanced civilization with physical projection would not need to go through so much trouble to invade. The logical explanation was that Blue Star had become a testing ground for a certain civilization, and if a civilization fell behind, they could only be bullied by others. Cyberlos, on the other hand, was not angry at all. He was excited. The unexpected phenomenon gave him passion. If the number of Inhumans continued to increase, the Blue Star situation would change drastically due to the fact that they could not die. Inhumans can be brainwashed, and they are highly obedient. However, when asked about the origin of the Inhumans, they will talk nonsense. I guess it is an instinctive reaction or an unknown language. More experiments are needed to prove it. The transmission of the Inhuman phenomenon was unknown. It was impossible to determine whether it was a physical transmission or a psychic transmission. The physical and mental state of the Inhumans was the same as that of normal humans. The test results were normal. It was impossible to determine the form of the Inhuman phenomenon. It could be a supernatural ability, a disease, or a genetic mutation. What was interesting was that the Inhumans had not been observed sleeping. Speculating from the time, disappearing might be the sleeping method of the Inhumans. Some Inhumans had other supernatural abilities, but they were relatively weak. They seemed to have extraordinary potential, but the reason was unknown. There were more special points that needed to be added. Was the Inhuman phenomenon long-term or short-term? Would the number of Inhumans stop increasing? Was there a possibility of the wild beasts being infected with the Inhuman phenomenon? In the long run, the Inhuman phenomenon has a lot of hidden dangers. We have to find a countermeasure or a containment method as soon as possible. After writing the conclusion, Cyberlos submitted the report to the leader. The leader's worldview was slightly impacted. Luckily, he had a firm mind. Because of the existence of all kinds of supernatural abilities, even a normal person had a high acceptance rate. He was used to seeing all kinds of supernatural phenomena that could not be explained. The Six Nations will notice the Inhumans sooner or later. In front of this phenomenon, the importance of being our enemy will be secondary. The Six Nations will definitely contact the galactic civilizations and ask about the cause of the Inhuman phenomenon. They won't have time to start a war, so I have time to breathe. The leader was also very interested in the cause of the Inhuman phenomenon, but he could not contact the galactic civilizations. However, he found the most important problem, which was that the Inhumans could be brainwashed and were highly obedient. When the conditions were right, he naturally had an idea. This is a natural cannon fodder. Andrea was the territory of the Germinal organization, and they had absolute control. The leader ordered to capture the Inhumans and bring them back for research and brainwashing. Inhumans had also appeared in the other 3 continents, but unfortunately, their bases had all been removed, and there was no one to capture them. Only then did the leader realize how much of an opportunity the organization had lost. Everything was because of Zero. He gritted his teeth in hatred and even wanted to use the killing weapon, Destiny's Child, to lock onto Zero's position. However, he had not made up his mind to take the risk. He did not know how the galactic civilizations viewed the Inhuman phenomenon. Was it rare or common in the universe? There were 4 novice villages in the Western continent. The open beta had been open for more than 20 days, and the average level of the players was almost LV10. Han Xiao planned to add energy training technique to the skill list this time. The price was 10,000 experience points and 3,000 aquamarine dollars. Without the prerequisite of 10 points of affection, some of the players should be able to afford it. The plane landed in a small stronghold of Fabian in the Western continent. The weather in the western continent was cold, and the first breath that Han Xiao took after he got off the plane made him feel uncomfortable. In the past 10 days, he had created the frame of the Viper mechanical suit, which was an endoskeleton formed by P0 nanomuscle fibers. It looked like a thick black bodysuit, and the wrinkles were all muscle lines. Han Xiao tried it on once, and it was very light. He already had the basic enhancement of his physical fitness. For example, when he punched, the fibers in the mechanical suit would produce elastic force as they were stretched and twisted. This elastic force would be condensed in the direction of the punch through the conductive module, increasing the strength of the punch. It was like gaining a new layer of muscles and tendons, and it was more flexible than an endoskeleton. The user could do whatever he wanted. It was still in the testing stage, and other materials needed to be added to prevent the loss of strength. Han Xiao spent a lot of EXP and used advanced material science to fuse with other basic knowledge to obtain some useful materials. He had the frame of the mechanical suit, and the most important part was the energy system. The Bonfire mini-reactor was an advanced equipment, and he had asked Lei Jinyu to buy it. The seller happened to be in the western continent, and Han Xiao had chosen to come to the western continent to get the goods. Mechanical suits were a way to increase one's combat power quickly. As long as he could replicate the Viper mechanical suit, his combat power would increase tremendously. Let's go to the novice village to get the EXP first. Han Xiao marked the location on the map and passed it to the pilot. At this time, his phone rang, indicating that he had received a message. He opened it and saw that it was a bounty from the Blood Pact Society. Black Phantom, this is a bounty from the upper echelons of the Darknet. Your mission is to sneak into the mansions of a few Maple officials and leave behind a few documents. Someone will meet you in the Western continent and pass the documents to you. The following is the location of the meeting and the specific information of the Maple officials. Han Xiao raised his eyebrows and called Bennett directly. Hey, what are you doing? It was good to know the upper echelons. One phone call, and he could ask directly. Compared to the other assassins, he was considered to have connections. Maple rejected the material aid because these officials are obstructing us, Bennett said. They are in charge of the financial budget. You know the situation in Maple. It's like touching the little treasury of these officials, and they are against it with all their might. What material aid? Han Xiao raised his eyebrows. He had a hunch. I haven't mentioned it to you yet. The organization is preparing for a large-scale project, codenamed Sanctuary. Originally, there was a 1-year preparation period, but the war is about to break out, so we can only plan ahead and ask for material aid from various countries. Only Maple rejected it. Chapter 168. When you return to the southern continent, I'll tell you the details of the plan. I do need your strength. Bennett paused. Star Dragon was the first to agree to the material aid, and you participated in the Battle of Tedrema River. I owe you one. Just give me something in return. Bennett laughed. That's your style. We'll talk about it when you return to the southern continent. You have triggered the sea-level mission, Deterrence. Mission Introduction. Some of the officials in Maple are very corrupt. It's time to let them know that holding on to the money can only get them bullets. We're not robbers, but we don't mind playing the role once in a while. Mission Requirements. Enter the mansions of the 5 target officials and leave behind the evidence collected by the Darknet. Reward: 120,000 EXP, 500 favorability with the Darknet. No special reward. Looks like a normal mission. I'll just do it casually. Han Xiao nodded. He was the best at infiltrating. The transport plane was refueled and took off with Han Xiao. A few hours later, they arrived at a plane dozens of miles away from a novice village. It was not easy to find an airport in the wilderness. The wings of the transport plane were equipped with steerable jets to provide vertical takeoff and landing power. They could land in the wilderness and did not have to worry about not having a runway when they took off. The pilot was also experienced. If Han Xiao did not have the huge discount for his old customers, the price of the charter plane would have been a few times more expensive. Legendary points and faction relationships saved him a lot of money. Relationships were very important. After getting off the plane, Han Xiao arrived at the novice village. The players that were busy completing missions. When they saw Black Phantom, they were all stunned and surprised. They swarmed forward and surrounded Han Shao. Poseidon, a core member of the Guild of Gods, was humming a tune and browsing the forum posts. He was in a good mood. President Jupiter finally stopped worrying about the A-level mission, and the development of the guild was on the right track. The second episode of Galaxy Times invited a beautiful esports player, Rainstorm Club's top player, Rainy Jiang, to share her experience and briefly introduce Stardragon. She participated in the Battle of Tedramara River and gave him some insider information, including the information of the Germinal Organization's withdrawal. That was how Jupiter found out that the Germinal Organization's base in southern continent had been dismantled. Thus, he completely gave up on the A-level mission. Coincidentally, the Dark Crow Valley faction had been removed, and he could join other factions. Therefore, he focused on organizing the guild and developing in southern continent. The second issue of Galaxy Times invited professional players from different novice planets for interviews. These professional players all opened maps and joined different factions, allowing the players to learn more about the various planets. The conflict between the Six Nations and the Germinal Organization was gradually revealed. The Blue Star players all understood that this was the main storyline of the planet. Poseidon did not agree with the A-level mission of the Germinal Organization from the beginning. He felt that it would distract the core group. Fortunately, Jupiter changed his mind and gave up on the A-level mission. Instead, the club's professional team was interested in this mission. Professional players were capable of challenging difficult missions, so the guild reported the process of triggering the mission to the team. After some discussion, the club decided to choose a quasi-first-rate player to descend to Andrea and look for the Germinal Organization to trigger the A-level mission. The guild would provide resources and intelligence support to help the player complete the mission. If the player really succeeded, the club would have another account with potential. Even if the player did not succeed, it would not be a loss. The player was the face of the club, and famous players had a higher status than the guild. The quasi-first-rate player was also quite famous. When he came to the guild office to chat, Poseidon asked for a few autographs and was very happy. Furthermore, the club was very satisfied with them for triggering the A-level mission in the novice stage and gave them some bonuses. The bad luck of the guild was over, and Poseidon was in a good mood. Speaking of the development of the guild, Black Phantom had to be mentioned. Most of the members of the Guild of Gods were born in southern continent. With the support of the guild, they all benefited from Black Phantom. Black Phantom only appeared in southern continent, which gave the players of southern continent a huge advantage, and the guild also benefited a lot. Many of their opponents were born in other continents, and the Guild of Gods was ahead of them, so the situation was very good. The core members of the Guild of Gods were secretly delighted when they heard the envious and jealous remarks of their old rivals. They felt a sense of superiority. Suddenly, a large number of new posts appeared in the Blue Star section of the forum, and the content could be summarized into one sentence. Black Phantom has come to Western Continent. Poseidon's heart skipped a beat, and he quickly opened the posts one by one. After reading them, he was sweating profusely. The little bit of joy in his heart disappeared, and he could not believe it. Is Black Phantom going to go to all the novice villages? If that was the case, all the players would be equal, and the advantage of the guild would be gone. Poseidon hurriedly informed the president and the other core members in the channel, and they were all shocked. Jupiter was very calm. He pondered and said, "You can't say that. We learn the skills in advance and can complete missions with more rewards, so we still have a small advantage. The behavior of NPCs is uncontrollable, so don't force it." Since the president said so, everyone was relieved. Poseidon looked at the forum again and suddenly exclaimed, F***CK, look at this post. What? Jupiter opened the post in confusion. The content was a screenshot of the skills taught by Han Shao, and the focus was on the energy training technique. Seeing the effect of the skill, everyone's jaw dropped. Godly skill. Energy was a key attribute, and it directly affected one's combat power. Now that the new players lacked energy, they could not support the consumption of their Esper abilities, and Espers needed this skill the most. Jupiter was an esper. He was envious, but he suddenly realized a serious problem. Wait, Black Phantom did not teach this skill in the southern continent. Everyone was dumbfounded. Could it be that the more Black Phantom went to the novice villages, the better the rewards were? So, the southern continent players were at a disadvantage? What the F asterisk CK? This is not superior, it's unlucky. The core members of the Guild of Gods were frustrated. Why is this feeling of being unlucky so familiar? It's back. Everything is back. On the forum, the Western Continent players were jumping up and down like stray dogs that had taken aphrodisiac, showing off. They had been suppressed by the Southern Continent players for so long, and now it was the Southern Continent players' turn to feel bad. The opportunity that they thought was unique to them turned out to be available to everyone, especially when they saw the new skill, energy training technique, taught by Black Phantom. The Western Continent players were overjoyed, and the Southern Continent players were tired and upset. Every dog has its day, and the Southern Continent players were the ones who were envious and jealous. So angry. Why didn't Black Phantom have this skill before? I want to learn it so much. Isn't he a mechanic instructor? How can he have such an awesome skill? Even I, an Esper, am tempted. Other than the boasting and complaining posts, Black Phantom's appearance in the Western Continent also caused the players to speculate. It looked like he was going to visit all the novice villages. Could it be that Black Phantom was actually an official novice guide? But the other novice planets did not. However, people's imaginations were endless. Once they decided on a result, they would find all kinds of reasons to prove it. There were endless guesses. Occasionally, players from other novice planets would come to the Blue Star Forum and complain about the unfairness. The Blue Star had a novice guide to destroy the balance of the game, but it would soon be drowned by the sea of people. The biggest supporters of this theory were the players from the Northern Continent and Andrea. Looking at Black Phantom's actions, it might be their turn next. They could not wait to show their faces in front of Black Phantom. Do you see our little expectant eyes? Hurry up and come. The players from the Western Continent were like celebrating a festival. Some players who had left the novice village to explore the map heard the news of Black Phantom's arrival and rushed back to their original novice village to wait for Black Phantom's arrival. Energy training technique had become a hot topic. Not only were there players who wanted to change their professions, even mutants were eager to learn this skill. Although the price was high for this godly skill, they were willing to sacrifice everything to learn it. Chapter 169. Han Xiao had foreseen such a situation. Everyone would be able to learn energy training technique the first time they advanced, but the players did not know about it. For players who were currently LV8 or 9, this was a godly skill. The increase in energy was more than what they gained from leveling up. Some players had not even changed their main class, so they needed skills that increased energy. Blue Star was the base camp of the Chinese players. Han Xiao seemed to be cheating the players by teaching them a skill that they were bound to learn, but in reality, that was not the case. One had to know that if they had a small advantage in the early stages, it would snowball and grow stronger. Looking at it from another perspective, Han Xiao allowed players around LV10 to learn a skill that could only be learned by LV20 players. Thinking about it this way, his actions were a win-win situation. Not only would he earn a huge amount of EXP, but he would also allow the Chinese players to be ahead of the players from other planets. Perfect. Han Xiao was very satisfied with his plan. Why would he cheat the players? It was all the prejudice and misunderstanding that the world had about him. He loved his country so much. Back then, his father had almost named him Xiao Aigua or Xiao Jinbong, but he had changed his name under the pressure of the Tigress. Energy training technique required 10,000 EXP to learn, and the profit contained made Han Xiao's heart beat violently just thinking about it. He could only teach the players the energy training technique before they advanced for the first time. This was a one-time deal, and he would take as much as he could. According to the enthusiasm of the players, Han Xiao felt that the EXP he would receive in version 1.0 would be an astronomical figure. While he was running to the Western Continent's novice village, Port Bun finally released the first video on the forum. Galaxy Adventure Diary, Black Phantom, 1. Pork Bun's dog was quite famous. Once the video was released, there were hardcore fans and curious passersby who clicked on it. Finally released a new episode. It's an international practice. Hurry up before you watch it. Missing people come back to life. The title is Black Phantom. Is Pork Bun riding on Black Phantom's coattails? The program was posted in the video section of the forum. The forum was not only for chatting, but it also had other functions. In order to let the players pass the time while they were playing the game, the video section had a lot of traffic. With the addition of the old fans, the number of viewers kept increasing. The opening was an edited promotional video with some screenshots of the scenery. When the movie started, the first thing that appeared was a third-person view of Pork Bun Dog. This was a viewing function that came with the game, so one could check the appearance of the movie. The background was the Black Pine settlement. Pork Bun Dog waved at the camera and opened his mouth to recite a poem. The boundless heaven and earth give birth to the universe, and yin and yang give birth to all living beings. Every moment of the night is worth 1,000 pieces of gold. Welcome to the diary of a space adventure. I am Pork Bun. The bullet screen was filled with ridicule. Is this a prelude? It must be an introductory poem. At that time, I recited a line from a poem. Coward, the sun rises in the east. Only I am undefeated. Long live the clam god sect. In the program, Pork Bun continued, it has been a long time since I released a new work. As the first episode of the Galaxy series, I will use a character as a cutting point of view to bring everyone to experience my adventure. This character has left a lot of impressions on the players. Mechanic class teacher, novice guide, mysterious NPC, hidden story. I think the audience in front of the screen will be curious about the identity of this character. That's right, he's the person written in the title, Black Phantom. The bullet screen. Wow, awkward chat time. I F asterisk king admire you. The camera changed to Pork Bun's first-person view, and the official content started. The content of the video was all recorded by Pork Bun while he was beating dog. After editing, it was made into different segments. The special effects and narration were added later. Pork Bun followed the humorous style and started from the scene where he met Han Xiao for the first time. Han Xiao fought against the wolves in Green Valley Town and stopped the confrontation between the two warlords. Pork Bun showed the first-person view of the game while he beat dog. The narration started to analyze Han Xiao's influence, forcing two warlords to retreat with a single sentence. Black Phantom has shown his influence. Before analyzing, I think we should introduce the identity of a warlord's first. The scene changed to Black Pine settlement. Bun Hit Dog introduced Lu Cheng as the leader of this large settlement with a large number of troops and chariots. Then, the topic changed. Lu Cheng has such a large force, but he is still afraid of Black Phantom. Then, where does Black Phantom's influence come from? Listen to me, Brother Bao. He used Lu Cheng as a foundation to further arouse the audience's curiosity about Black Phantom. The effect was obvious. Mad Blade and Angry Sword appeared in the show as guests. The analysis of Han Zhao's identity started from the conversation between the two of them, slowly revealing the tip of the iceberg of Black Phantom's mysterious origin. First, the two of them revealed Black Phantom's name. It seemed to be Han Xiao, and he used to serve in Star Dragon's intelligence agency. This was information that no one knew, and it caught the audience's attention instantly. The bullet screen became much smaller, and the audience was watching the content seriously. Mad Blade was riding on Han Zhao's coattails during the closed beta, but he had no idea about Han Zhao's real identity. He only knew that Black Phantom originally belonged to the Six Nations. For some unknown reason, Black Phantom left Star Dragon and joined the Darknet and Blood Pact Society. This information came from strong enemy, Lu Cheng, who was also extremely deadly. Although the details of these two organizations were not known, they definitely had a strong background. They were high-level organizations that players could not come into contact with at the moment, and they were also one of the sources of Black Phantom's influence. Pork Bun and Mad Blade also thought that the key reason why people were afraid of Black Phantom was because of his strength. At the player's level, they could not see the exact attributes of high-level characters, but they had seen Han Xiao kill other, extremely deadly NPCs more than once. Just based on this, they believed that Black Phantom's strength was at the top level among NPCs. Going against the Germinal organization was Black Phantom's biggest goal at the moment. As there were not many clues, they could not figure out the reason why Black Phantom and the Germinal organization were at odds. Madblade shared the situation of the closed beta. From the closed beta to the open beta, more than 3 months had passed in the game, and Han Xiao had turned into Black Phantom. Once this information was released, it immediately aroused the audience's curiosity. What exactly did he go through to become the Black Phantom of today? There was no evidence, so it was all speculation. The show did not talk about it in detail. Port Bun's original intention was to throw this question out as the hook and suspense of the show to attract the audience's curiosity. Then Port Bun and Madblade discussed Black Phantom's actions in the Novice Village. They thought that this was the decisive evidence to prove that Black Phantom was the Novice Guide. After more than 20 days of playing, the players realized that the NPC's actions and thoughts were very real. They would even be surprised that the players could come back from the dead. Then, why would Black Phantom come into contact with the players so frequently? And it was obvious that he had a plan. There must be a special reason, but the show only mentioned it briefly. Port Bun said that he and Madblade had both triggered Black Phantom's hidden storyline, proving that he could follow and report. At the same time, he introduced the various benefits of Black Phantom and recorded the scene of Han Xiao giving Madblade and Angry Sword 2 high-quality guns. They also followed Black Phantom to Black Pine, a map that was more advanced than the Novice Village, and they could receive missions with rich rewards. The screen was full of people showing off their benefits, and the audience was very envious. Those who could trigger Black Phantom's hidden storyline were all lucky kings. Eat the spear, you bastard. Suck, I heard that you have to hold it in your mouth to be lucky. At the end of the show, Pork Bun said, "There's only one episode of the Black Phantom series for now. The next episode may be about something else. After all, Madblade and I are now in Black Pine. But don't worry, I will continue to follow and explore Black Phantom's past and present life. So, to all the dog viewers, let's meet again in the next episode." The audience who watched the show in one breath only had one thought. Amazing! The screen was Bunhit Dog's first-person adventure, and the commentary at the side was from Black Phantom's perspective. It introduced a lot of information that normal people would not know and threw out more world backgrounds and anecdotes. There was a lot of solid information, and it answered a lot of questions. Also, the style was relaxed, and it was imaginative, and it came up with all kinds of interesting speculations. The audience was very satisfied and went to other posts to recommend it, making more players join in. Port Bun's first episode's theme was very good. It happened to be when Han Xiao stepped into the Western continent and made his presence known on the forum, and it was at the peak of popularity. Port Bun's video gained a wave of popularity, and the number of viewers was increasing every second. The first episode was completely popular. Port Bun was very surprised. It was a very good decision to choose the theme for this episode. The video became popular because of Han Zhao's popularity, and not only that, but it also helped and increased Han Zhao's popularity. Chapter 170. Apart from benefits, there was another way that players viewed NPCs, and that was worship. This relationship originated from the fondness of the character, the popularity of the character, or being impressed by the character's experience, thus forming a fan base. For example, famous characters like Dragonborn, Xiaohei, Medivh, One Punch Baldy, Master Kratos, and so on. If players were fond of or worshipped by these NPCs, they would have certain inclinations and certain decisions. For example, they would give up on quests from opposing factions and follow famous NPCs into battle. Female, weird, and perverted characters had a natural advantage in this aspect, and Han Xiao was very confident in this aspect. However, without the support of benefits, this kind of relationship would not have a substantial effect. If he wanted players to fight for him, benefits were important. He understood the nature of players. They might temporarily help famous NPCs for fun, but if there was no benefit, they would leave sooner or later. Fortunately, his strategy had both benefits and fame. He had to grab hold of both hands and be tough on both. Han Xiao also watched Pork Bun's video. This was exactly what he wanted Pork Bun to do. Through the video, he would throw out some clues and attract more players' curiosity and speculation. It was not important that his real name was leaked. The information flow between players and NPCs was limited, and the information each party had was different. The German organization knew that he was Zero and probably knew his original name, Xiao Han, but they did not know that he was Black Phantom or Han Xiao. Star Dragon knew that he was Han Xiao and Zero, but they were not sure if he was Black Phantom. The players knew that he was Han Xiao, Black Phantom, who had served in Star Dragon, but they did not know that he was Zero. Oh, the players did not know about Throyeth. The Darknet knew that he was Black Phantom, but they did not know anything else. Every organization only had one-sided information, and if one's identity was exposed one day, all he had to do was change his face and nothing would happen. Once he was strong enough, he could reveal all his identities and accumulate a qualitative change in energy, which would allow his legendary points to rise to another level. As the saying went, if one wanted to survive, one had to rely on a Smurf account. That was how it was. Ever since the open beta, Han Zhao's name had been dominating the Blue Star section of the forum. His exposure rate was very high. Just like celebrities, exposure would deepen one's impression of him. His fame was gradually changing from a short-term effect to a long-term position in the hearts of the players. The situation was great. His actions, coupled with the promotion of various videos, made his popularity rise every moment. However, Han Technician was used to preparing for a rainy day. He faintly felt that there was a bottleneck in increasing his influence. Although the currently displayed functions were popular with players, they lacked interaction with the player's storyline. Only by moving closer to the main storyline would the players take the initiative to contact him. Therefore, he had his eyes on Bennett's main storyline. After running to 2 novice villages, Han Xiao decided to slow down for a few days to give the other players time to raise money and give himself time to do other things. The first thing he had to do was to get the bonfire mini reactor. He called Lei Zhenyu and asked where the seller was going to deliver the goods. Lei Zhenyu gave the seller's phone number to Han Xiao. He dialed the number, and it rang 3 times before the call was picked up. Hello. The other side's voice was electronically synthesized, so Han Xiao could not tell their age or gender. How do you want to deliver the goods? Han Xiao went straight to the point. 3 days later. I'll send you the coordinates later. We'll do the payment and the goods at the same time. Okay, I'll send one of my men to deliver the goods, Han Xiao said. The phone was hung up. 10 seconds later, Han Xiao received a message. Ordina Border City, Severus. In Ordina, financial groups and family forces were intertwined. The country's policies were geared towards elitism. There was a strict division of social classes, and competition was everywhere. Every city was shrouded in a solemn and dignified atmosphere. Furthermore, Ordina was rainy all year round, and the thin fog made the city hazy and gloomy. It was drizzling in Severus. The weather was humid and cold, which suited the atmosphere of the city. A room in a residential building was set up as a surveillance room. It was connected to the city's traffic cameras and monitored all the roads in the 3 nearby streets. More than 10 solemn men in black were busy. Some were adjusting their guns, some were watching the surveillance cameras, and some were sorting out the information. This was an action team from Ordina's intelligence agency. There were also 6 other action teams and special forces sealing off the 3 nearby streets. Ordina's agents were gathered here to capture a fugitive who stole the country's confidential information. They had been on the run for many years and finally found a clue a few days ago. The target would appear in Severus to make a deal with a third party. The source of the information was reliable. It was the work of the hacker department. They hacked into the lines and picked out the suspected target's key calls from countless intercepted calls. Keep monitoring. Snipers are in position at all times. Wait for the target to meet up with the trading party, and then we'll take him down in one fell swoop. The higher-ups suspect that the target's trading party could be a domestic political financial group. We need evidence, the chief commander said in the earpiece. The target is very cunning. Mr. Mag, you're the last insurance. Please be prepared to attack at any time. A faint hum came out of the earpiece. Mag was Ordina's ace agent. His position was similar to Seagull City's M.O. ran. He was sent as the insurance for this mission, which showed how much importance Ordina placed on this mission. The plane couldn't land in Ordina City, so it was parked at a place far away. Han Xiao used his electromagnetic hover shoes to travel for a day before he finally arrived at Severus on foot. At the border of Severus, there was a long line of wanderers entering the city. Ordina's soldiers were standing guard and patrolling. Their equipment was different from Star Dragon's. They were all wearing tactical masks, so their faces couldn't be seen clearly. They looked very solemn. No one in the line spoke. There was only the sound of footsteps moving forward. It was like a concentration camp. The rendezvous point is at Severus. Han Xiao had changed his appearance and clothes, but all his equipment was still on him. He was itching to go through the checkpoint, so he could only rely on the snake heads to sneak in. With the threat of guns and enough aquamarine coins, the smuggling went smoothly. Even though the border was heavily guarded, it couldn't exterminate the existence of the snake heads, just like how humans couldn't exterminate cockroaches. Han Xiao walked on the streets of Severus. At this time, he was fully dressed to hide the equipment on his body. He was also carrying a large backpack with guns inside. The rain sprinkled on his white hooded raincoat, and his face was hidden under the hood. Han Xiao had changed his face. Of course, he would not show up in Ordina with his original face or Black Phantom's face. Antonio's warning was reasonable. Han Xiao did not want to make any mistakes in this transaction. Luckily, he had always been low-key. The rendezvous point was a cafe by the road, seat 7. As the buyer, the seller might not show up if he didn't show up first. Han Xiao sat in seat 7 and glanced around the cafe. Soothing music was playing on the radio, and it was misty outside the window. It was quite a bourgeois atmosphere. At this time, half of the seats were occupied. They were quietly drinking, reading newspapers, or reading computers. Han Xiao's arrival only attracted a few glances from the customers, and they continued with their own business. It looked very normal. Han Xiao called the waiter and asked for a cup of coffee. He drank casually while waiting for the seller to arrive. He turned to look at the floor-to-ceiling window. There were pedestrians walking past with umbrellas, as if they were in a hurry to go home. Under the eaves of the opposite street, a few men were hiding from the rain and playing with their phones. It was drizzling, and the water dripped down from the eaves and gathered in the drainage ditch by the street. The water rippled continuously. Han Xiao lowered his head and sipped his coffee. He acted normal, but in fact, he had already noticed that something was wrong. The customer reading the newspaper 3 seats away has an abnormal heartbeat rate and rapid breathing. The woman drinking coffee at the bar has sweat dripping down her temples. The man who just passed by the window has steady footsteps. When he passed by the floor-to-ceiling window, he deliberately slowed down by 30%. The second person on the left, who is hiding from the rain on the opposite street, is shaking his heels subtly. It's a sign of anxiety. At LV-55, his senses were greatly enhanced. His observation skills were very detailed, and the subtle reactions of normal people could not escape his eyes. He could sense the emotional state of others through the details of their movements and expressions. Someone is spying on the cafe. Is it the seller or a third party? Could it be me? I don't think I've offended anyone in Ordina. Han Xiao was surprised. When he discovered the spies, a notification popped up on the interface. You have triggered Level D mission involvement. Mission introduction. The mysterious merchant you are dealing with is a felon in Ordina. The news of your transaction has been leaked. Unfortunately, you have also entered the spy's field of vision. You have been involved in a storm that has nothing to do with you. Mission requirement. Escape from Ordina's pursuit. Reward. 65,000 EXP. Special reward. Unknown these days, I'm really unlucky. Han Xiaoxin was depressed. He only wanted to get the mini bonfire reaction furnace safely, but he did not expect to be involved in such a serious incident. Couldn't they just let him be a little more stable? Chapter 171. After waiting for a few minutes, a man walked into the cafe and sat opposite Han Xiao. He was wrapped in a dark green trench coat, wearing a pair of sunglasses and a hat. A scarf was wrapped around his neck, covering the lower half of his face. The man carried a metal suitcase and placed it on the table. He stared at Han Xiao without saying a word. The seller knew that the buyer was Black Phantom, but Han Xiao was a stranger. Han Xiao and the seller stared at each other for a while, confirming each other's identities in silence. Which stranger would not say a word and just stare at each other like idiots? The seller entered the password and opened the briefcase to Han Xiao. There was a small circular device inside the briefcase. All kinds of wires were exposed to the air, and the structure was complicated. In the middle of the device was a bulging cylinder with a black metal shell. There were red lights flashing in the gaps. This was the mini bonfire reaction furnace, an energy core that could automatically generate electricity through solar energy and concentrated fuel. It was an advanced energy branch equipment and also a super equipment. Energy could also be used as fuel to convert into energy. The self-charging battery could save the trouble of recharging, and it was the core material of a mechanical suit. It would be awkward if he had to change the battery in the middle of the battle. Han Xiao touched the device and confirmed that it was not a model. He took out his PDA and paid the seller with his Darknet account. He moved quickly and said, "Run." Han Xiao did not care about the seller's reaction. He grabbed the mini bonfire reaction furnace and threw it into his backpack. He then stood up abruptly, took out the Berserk Eagle, aimed at the surveillance target, and fired continuously. In fact, the moment the transaction was completed, the Ordina agents were ready to attack. However, Han Xiao was 1 second faster. The large-caliber steel core bullets jumped out of the gun, and the kinetic energy within a few dozen meters was no less than that of a sniper bullet. The few surveillance agents who were hit flew backward. They were all wearing bulletproof vests and had well-trained bodies, but they were all ordinary soldiers with no energy. Han Xiao was a LV-55 mechanic, and his gun attributes had been specially enhanced. He also had all kinds of affinity skills that increased the power of machines. One shot was all it took to make these surveillance agents lose their ability to fight, heavily injuring them and making them unable to move. The seller did not hesitate and immediately smashed through the floor-to-ceiling window. The glass shards fell to the ground. He ran as fast as he could. His movements were nimble, and every step he took covered a few meters. He was also a superhuman. Han Xiao fled in another direction. Splitting up would allow him to divert the enemy's strength. "Bastard, who are you dealing with?" The commander of Ordina was furious. He didn't expect the buyer to be that strong, but he was able to detect the danger in advance. Han Zhao's sudden appearance had messed up the plan. The commander immediately ordered the agents and soldiers to move out. The troops on standby were divided into two groups, one to track the seller and the other Han Xiao. There was a puddle of water on the street. Han Xiao skimmed past quickly, stirring up a large splash. Dense footsteps sounded all around him. Agents appeared from alleys and buildings and fired in his direction. The pedestrians on the street screamed and ran for cover. With the magnetically controlled retractable armor on his body, the bullets bounced off and sparks flew everywhere. Han Xiao had two guns in his hands. While he slid, he shot at the agents who were flipping over without missing a single shot. Suddenly, Han Xiao felt a stagnation under his feet. The puddle of water had actually reached his calves and slowed him down. The superhuman agents of Ordina have made their move. Han Zhao's eyes flashed. The information on the interface had already told him the identity of the enemy. It was an Esper around LV-30. Two pugilist agents rushed out from the side of the street. While Han Xiao was slowing down, they quickly closed in on him and attacked him with fists and legs wrapped in flames. Han Zhao's expression did not change as the enemy closed in on him. He activated the Sunworm's concentrated spray. Thick orange flames shot out from the bottom of his palm and engulfed the two pugilist agents. The continuous damage was very high. The two pugilist agents screamed in pain and hurriedly retreated. The flames mixed with the rainwater and turned into a white mist. The steam even sizzled, blocking the vision of the agents. Han Xiao activated the full power of his electromagnetic hover boots and shredded all the puddles that clung to him. He retreated at high speed and quickly got out of the range of the water manipulation esper. He did not want to fight with the enemy agents in Ordina's territory. At this time, the sound of engines suddenly sounded. Two black police cars rushed out from the intersection in front of him. They were rather large and looked like recreational vehicles. They skidded to a stop at the intersection and blocked Han Xiao's path. The wheels splashed up the puddles of water as they moved in an arc, facing Han Xiao from the side. Large caliber guns extended out of the car windows and opened fire at the same time. The flames from the guns were about half a meter long. The bullets expanded in his vision, and Han Xiao was hit head-on. These guns were all large caliber submachine guns. There were also a few shotguns that had a knockback effect. Even with the protection of his armor, he was still slowed down by the kinetic energy of the bullets, and sparks flew everywhere. A new information appeared on the interface. The identity of the enemy was that of the Special Forces of Ordina. Han Xiao hurriedly changed his direction. His skateboard shoes stepped on the buildings on the side of the street and slid past the roofs of two RVs. The Special Forces soldiers in the RVs hurriedly got out of their vehicles and opened fire at him. The bullets chased after his expert figure, leaving a row of dense bullet holes on the outer walls of the buildings. Han Xiao took out an explosive grenade, opened a ring with his mouth, and threw it into the middle of the RV. The Special Forces hurriedly dodged, but the sound wave of the grenade ignored all obstacles. The buzzing sound spread, and the Special Forces were knocked out on the spot. Han Xiao turned around, shot the tires of the RV, and left. The surveillance cameras along the way were destroyed by Han Xiao's bullets, but the agents continued to chase after him. Some even took a detour to block his path. In terms of speed, the electromagnetic hover boots were not as fast as these speeding cars. Han Xiao did not choose to take the main road. The electromagnetic hover boots could ignore all obstacles, and he could jump over walls and buildings to shake off the pursuers again and again. However, there was always a new car in front of him. Ordina had placed a lot of manpower in these few streets. How can they always find me? Han Xiao had a flash of inspiration. He looked back as he slid and saw 3 unmanned aerial drones in the sky. No wonder the enemy could always follow him. He took out the Red Falcon and destroyed the drones with 3 shots. The commander of the Ordina operation was so angry that he slammed the table. The other team had lost the cellar, and now Han Xiao was the last target. However, the enemy was too difficult to deal with, and the men they had placed couldn't do anything to him. "Mac, take him down." After shaking off the last few vehicles, Han Xiao jumped between the buildings. Just as he was about to find a hidden place to change his face and equipment, a spray of bullets suddenly shot out from above and hit him in the back. The small bullets exploded, and thick smoke and flames burst out. Han Xiao was directly blown into the wall. Dust and bricks were scattered all over the ground. The close-range explosion made Han Xiao's ears ring a little. He frowned, shook off the dust on his head, and looked up. A figure was standing on the rooftop, wearing a bulletproof vest. His whole body was covered with waterproof bullet belts, and all kinds of guns were hanging on his body. There were 4 pistols on his waist and thighs, a sniper rifle, and 2 different assault rifles hanging on his back. He was holding a shotgun in his hand, and smoke was coming out of the muzzle. The damage of this shot was beyond the attributes of a normal gun. Han Xiao looked at the interface and was shocked. "A cannon master? You have entered combat mode. You have received the following information. Mag Leslie level, 56 class, Agent LV-10, Elite Agent LV-9, Hawkeye LV-11, Novice Mechanic LV-10, Cannon Apprentice LV-10, Cannon Apprentice LV-10, Cannon Apprentice LV-6 Attributes, 54 STR, 131 DX, 65 END, 146 INT, 17 MYS, 11 CHA, 13 LUK health points, 1900 energy, 940 energy rank, 1, 230 talent, well-trained, plus 100 health tough physique, plus 400 health, plus 4% resistance sharp vision. Increases vision, increases shooting accuracy by 20%, increases critical rate by 13% gun specialist, plus 18% attack when using gun-type weapons gun master. Increases long-range attack by 1 for every 5 dexterity skills. Explosive shooting LVL 5, slide shooting LVL 4, fireworks LVL 2, ammo pour LVL 3, basic shooting LVL 10, precise shooting LVL 8, recoil strafe LVL 5, Hawkeye lock LVL 1, intermediate gun affinity LVL 8, clip continuation LVL 5 equipment. RX 108 assault rifle, quality, white, attack 41 to 48, fire rate 5. 6/S, maximum fire rate 8. 9/S, effective range 380 meters, magazine capacity 30, energy level 41 foot butcher, assault rifle, quality, green, attack 71 to 85, fire rate 3. 4/S, maximum fire rate 5. 7/S, effective range 350 meters, magazine capacity 24, energy level 49 pox pistol, quality, white, attack 34 to 40, fire rate 2. 5/S, effective range 80 m, magazine capacity 12, power output 28, hook gun, shoots out a rope with a hook, range 20 meters. Chapter 172. Mag was a cannon gunner, a branch of the mechanic class. He was an expert in using guns, and his attack power was very high. The stronger the weapon, the more advantage he could bring out. This was Han Zhao's first time fighting a high-level enemy of the same class. The enemy was on the roof, and he was on the ground. Every meter was a natural moat created by cannon gunner. In the blink of an eye, Han Zhao completed the analysis of the enemy and the surrounding terrain in his mind, and quickly planned his escape route. A level 56 cannon gunner. His attack power is very strong, but his health is very fragile. I have one chance to deal a heavy blow to the enemy, but it's not easy to kill him. Once I'm held back, the enemy's reinforcements will come immediately. I don't have any supplies, and the human wave tactic is not good for me. I have to escape quickly while I'm hurting the enemy. Han Zhao's shoes shone with a blue light, and he slid away with a whoosh. Tried to escape? Mag was expressionless. He had already noticed that Han Zhao's mobility came from his skateboard shoes. He picked up the RX 108 assault rifle and started firing. Every bullet was aimed at Han Zhao's shoes accurately. As long as the shoes were destroyed, the enemy wouldn't be able to escape. However, a layer of magnetically controlled armor quickly covered the skateboard shoes. Sparks flew, and the bullets bounced off. That was close. Han Zhao was slightly shocked. Luckily, he was prepared and reacted in time to block Mag's shots. Otherwise, it would be much more difficult for him to escape if his shoes were destroyed. Taking a hit without retaliating was not Han Zhao's style. As he retreated strategically, he raised both guns to return fire. His accuracy was not inferior to Mag's, and 3 large-caliber steel-core bullets hit Mag's bulletproof vest. Mag shuddered. He wasn't good at stamina, so he could barely withstand the kinetic energy of the bullets. He endured the pain and moved between the buildings with the hook gun, following closely behind Han Zhao. Mag had the advantage of moving on the roof, so he picked up the Tiger Claw shotgun and used an explosive shot to hit Han Zhao again. The force of the explosion blasted Han Zhao into the wall again. Before Han Zhao could pull himself out of the wall, he suddenly felt a sense of danger. Without hesitation, he covered himself in armor. Mag's expression was cold as he stood on a rooftop. He held an assault rifle in each hand and used slide shot and bullet shower to increase the rate of fire. The barrage of bullets that rained down like a storm pinned Han Zhao against the wall. The holes in the wall were spraying out plumes of lime, and the cracks kept expanding. More or less dead, Mag shot out hundreds of bullets within a few seconds, and all of them hit their targets. He even mixed in a skill. This round was a burst of power. Even if the target didn't die, he would at least be half dead. Dust and ash flew everywhere, making it impossible to see what was going on in the pit. A series of strange noises were heard. Suddenly, an invisible force field erupted from the wall. The rainwater was pushed away, forming an open area. The bullets were also bounced off and scattered all over the sky. Repulsion field drive. Han Xiao made use of the repulsive force to jump out of the hole in the wall. He held the ghost sniper rifle in one hand and aimed it at Mag from afar. The long body of the rifle was like a spear, locking onto Mag's direction. Tom seemed to have slowed down. Mag felt a chill down his spine. His intuition told him that the rifle was extremely lethal. He quickly dodged, but before he could do so, Han Xiao had already opened fire. A blue light flashed past. Mag felt an irresistible force in his chest, and he was sent flying. He rolled in the puddles and fell to the other side of the rooftop. He quickly grabbed onto the roof to prevent himself from falling. His chest was in excruciating pain. He looked down and saw blood spurting out from a hole in his right chest. Even his bulletproof vest was pierced through. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. "My lung is pierced." Mag had difficulty breathing. Every time he took a breath, he felt as if his lungs were being scraped back and forth by a steel knife. The pain made him sweat profusely. This shot was even more powerful than when he was at his best. He was horrified. His opponent's explosive power was on par with his trump card, Ordina. Where did this powerhouse come from? He had never seen such a powerhouse before. If he hadn't avoided his vital organs, this shot would have hit his eyes. If he had dodged half a second slower, the consequences would have been Mag had a lingering fear. His wariness of Han Xiao had reached its peak. "You have destroyed Mag's synthetic ceramic bulletproof vest. You have inflicted 772 points of damage to Mag. Mag is in a moderate bleeding state. He is losing 5 health points per second for 60 seconds. Mag's lung is pierced. Agility minus 10%. Movement minus 15%. This explosive shot was enhanced by Flaming Will and Overload, so the damage was terrifying." Han Xiao panted heavily. Mag's continuous shooting had reduced the durability of his magnetically controlled armor to the warning line of 100 points. This was the first time it was close to being damaged. If it wasn't for the fact that he had strengthened the armor several times, it would have been destroyed with the defense and durability of the original version. Launchers were known for their firepower. If Mag could get a more powerful gun, his attack power would be even more terrifying. Mag was already shocked that Han Xiao was still unharmed after taking a round of shots. If they continued to fight, Han Xiao would definitely win. However, he already heard the sound of engines in the distance. The enemy's reinforcements were coming. This is Ordina's territory. Mag knows my explosive power, so he will definitely fight with me. The most important thing now is to escape. I have already gotten the item, so there is no need for me to fight. As this thought flashed through his mind, Han Xiao turned around and left without hesitation. Mag didn't dare to pursue and fire recklessly like before. He endured the pain and followed from afar, shooting a few shots before finding cover. He was so cautious that he looked like a completely different person. He was really frightened by Han Xiao's shocking shot. Han Xiao was relieved of a lot of pressure. While Mag was afraid, he enhanced his skateboard shoes with Overload and disappeared from Mag's sight in the blink of an eye. Mag couldn't catch up with him. The city's streets and alleys were complicated, so he disappeared without a trace. He quickly called his colleagues to check the city surveillance, but the other party seemed to have disappeared. The target of the operation was the seller. The seller was very experienced in escaping after being tracked for so many years after being reminded by this buyer. This small mistake caused the agents to lose track of the seller, so Mag could only chase after the buyer. However, not only did he let the final target escape, but he, the ace, was also injured. Anger, depression, and indignation were rolling in his heart. Failing the mission was like a slap to his face. The Ordina agent started a search, but of course they found nothing. They could only send the battle footage to the intelligence department for analysis. They didn't have much hope at first, but they unexpectedly found someone with a matching combat style. Black Phantom. They don't look the same. The other party might be wearing a human skin mask. That makes sense. Only Black Phantom can disappear from the world like a ghost. In the operation command room, Mag was letting the doctor bandage his wounds with a gloomy expression. He had heard of Black Phantom's name before. As the ace of the intelligence agency, he didn't think much of a lone killer like him. He didn't expect that in this accidental encounter, as the pursuer who had the upper hand, he would be severely injured by Black Phantom and even lose track of the target. Mag felt very embarrassed and brooded over it. Legend is indeed a legend. The operation command didn't blame Mag. If the opponent was Black Phantom, failure was acceptable. The problem was, why did Black Phantom come to the Western continent and have a deal with the criminal they were tracking? The higher-ups of the Ordina Intelligence Department took Black Phantom's appearance very seriously. They called a meeting and asked the hacker group to broadcast the source of the information. It was a short call record between Han Xiao and the seller and the location of the rendezvous. Hello. How do you want to hand over the goods? 3 days later. I'll send you the coordinates later. We'll hand over the goods at the same time. Okay, I'll send one of my men to do the handover. The last sentence was the main point. The dealer sent Black Phantom, so the identity of the dealer was obvious. Chapter 173. After Han Xiao escaped from Mag's sight, he took a detour and returned to the route where the cameras were destroyed. He disguised himself, changed his face, and blended into the crowd, successfully getting rid of his pursuers. After changing his appearance, Han Xiao rushed to the border without stopping. As expected, the sentry post was closed, and the special forces and soldiers searched everyone who passed by. I'm so unlucky. I even got beaten up by a bunch of special agents when I was just shopping. Han Xiao cursed his bad luck in his mind. Antonio's words had come true, and he had really run into Ordina's intelligence agency. Based on his performance in battle, Ordina's intelligence agency would probably confirm that he was Black Phantom. There was no other way. In order to escape, he had to give it his all. Ordina's intelligence agency was still very useful. Is it so hard to keep a low profile? Han Xiao felt helpless. Exposing his identity did not affect him much, as his whereabouts were unpredictable. However, he felt like he had tricked someone. This is a small problem. Forget it. At least this time, Han Xiaoxin got the mini bonfire reactor. He was very satisfied. Han Xiao remembered the location of the head of the snake. The sentry post did not affect his smuggling, and he could accept the reasonable increase in the smuggling fee. It was already an hour later when he left the city from a secluded direction in Severus. The rain had stopped, the clouds had dispersed, and the sun was shining brightly. Han Xiao was on his way with his skateboard shoes when he suddenly received a call from Bennett. Why did Ordina's intelligence agency just contact the higher-ups of the organization to denounce us and ask for compensation? What did you do in the Western continent? Bennett was very annoyed. He felt like trouble had fallen from the sky while he was sitting at home. Ordina showed the evidence. Bennett recognized the voice of the person who made the transaction as Han Xiao. He was very annoyed. Who would say that they sent their men over and did it themselves in the end? Even if you want to create confusion, don't make your battle mode so obvious. It's very easy for people to misunderstand you, you old swindler. Well, it's just to keep my identity a secret, but it didn't seem to work. Oh, don't worry, it's not a big deal. I just had a fight with the people from Ordina, took out a few agents, and destroyed a few buildings. Everything else is fine, and Ordina is very hospitable. Speaking of which, the weather here is really bad. It's always raining, and it's gloomy and not bright at all. It's not as comfortable as the southern continent. I like the southern continent, where the weather is nice and the flowers bloom in spring. Bennett was shocked. How did you change the topic to the weather so naturally? Can you be any more rigid in changing the topic? Han Xiao laughed and said, it was an accident. That's all. I still have something to do, so I'll hang up first. You F***er. Before Bennett could finish his sentence, Han Xiao quickly hung up the phone and wiped the non-existent cold sweat off his forehead. He murmured, "What a mistake. I didn't expect Ordina to be so angry. Is there a need to link complete? You have gained 65,000 EXP. You have completed the hidden requirement. Stop Mag and help the mysterious merchant escape within 3 minutes." Han Xiao raised an eyebrow. So that's the hidden requirement. Luckily, I didn't ask the seller to cover for me. At that time, he actually had two ideas. One was to protect himself. Since the target was not him, he could have let the seller attract the attention of the other party. However, Han Xiao chose the other option, which was to remind the seller to run first. Seems like I made the right choice. Han Xiao smiled. The reward shouldn't be EXP. I have a player baby now, so I don't need EXP that much. You have received a special reward. Character summon card, Dion. LV30 Special Dungeon Crystal. Alina Infiltration Plan, plus 30 Dion favorability. Tradable. Dion? Han Xiao frowned and thought for a while. Then his eyes lit up. He remembered. This was a mysterious NPC on the Blue Star. He had a mysterious power hidden under the water. He was very low-key, and he bought and sold all kinds of rare materials. He was a hidden shop, and there were no fixed missions for the players to encounter him. They could only rely on the Goddess of Luck. However, even if the players encountered a mission, they would miss the opportunity if they didn't complete the hidden requirement. For example, when the Goddess of Luck lifted her skirt, the players thought they could see the holy light, but she lifted her skirt and kicked the players to the ground. He's the buyer this time. Han Xiao was pleasantly surprised. His phone rang again. He looked at the number and saw that it was the seller. A hacker bugged my phone. I've already dealt with it. I won't leak any more secrets. I got you involved this time. I heard that Mag was sent toward Dina. If you didn't warn me, I might not have been able to escape. I owe you a favor. Since you called, it means that you want to return the favor. Han Xiao pretended to be mysterious, but he was laughing in his heart. After knowing the seller's background, he suddenly felt more confident. "Dean, you can call me that," the seller said. "I don't do business with new customers, but you're an exception. I'll give you a 20% discount." "Only 20%? Han Xiao raised his voice. "Can you give me more?" Dean was shocked by Han Xiao's shamelessness. He wondered why a legendary killer didn't have a mysterious style. After a moment of silence, he said, 20% is quite a lot. TSK. Dean didn't continue the conversation. He felt that he would be led astray if he continued to talk about it. Han Xiao soon received a message. It was a list of Dean's products. There were all kinds of rare things. He remembered that some of them were confidential research of the Six Nations. There were also advanced machines. The bonfire was one of them. There were also a few nano-machines that Leijun you had shown before. Leijun you had also made a deal with Dean before. Han Xiao was overjoyed. He could buy some new modules to assemble the mecha. The players in the two newbie villages in the Western continent had given him a lot of money. He could spend it freely. After quickly choosing a few machines, Han Xiao asked, "How do you want to trade?" "It's still a meeting. This time, I'll give you a position in the wilderness 3 days later. I'll get someone to pass the items to you. My identity is more sensitive. For safety reasons, please understand that I don't want to do it personally." Han Xiaoxin was satisfied. His mecha was only one step away. As long as the new batch of materials arrived, he would be able to complete the assembly. After hanging up, Han Xiao focused on the two special rewards. They were Dean's character summon card and a level 30 rare dungeon crystal. Character summon card, Dean ability. You can't see me, D. Weakens the sense of presence. Causes perception deviation to any objects, including inanimate objects, that can see the user. Lasts 3 to 8 minutes. If the user attacks or is attacked, the status will be removed. Only those with INT or MYS higher than 180 will be immune. Usage count, 0/2. It's not a psychic Esper ability or pure invisibility. It's an Esper ability that changes with the environment. For example, if thermal imaging can see him, then his Esper ability can hide his body heat. The other observation methods follow the same principle. What a rare Esper ability. Chapter 174. Han Xiao looked at the other item. LV-30 Special Dungeon Crystal. Alina Infiltration Plan. Introduction. Alina is Ordina's secret research facility. A few years ago, Dean bypassed the security and stole Ordina's military secrets. This will be your test. Dungeon type. Time reversal dungeon. Current number of players cleared. 0. Fastest time cleared. 0 0 0 0 0 0. Record holder. None. Only those who entered the dungeon would know the mission of the dungeon. Han Xiao guessed that the mission was to enter Dean's perspective and steal the secrets repeatedly. The dungeon crystal was risky, so Han Xiao decided not to use it. He stored it in the interface and might be able to sell it to the players in the future. 3 days later, at the designated meeting point in a small valley in the wilderness, 2 of Dean's mass subordinates were waiting. Han Xiao paid and received the goods on the spot. The process went smoothly. After returning to the transport plane, Han Xiao opened the metal box that he had just received. It was filled with the materials he had just bought. U9 colloidal bulletproof film. Its function had already been explained. Vein biological transmission wire. It increased energy efficiency and power output. It could be used to slightly increase the basic attributes of the mech. Rapid injection module. It could be used as a built-in mech to inject some medicine, such as healing potions, hormones, and so on. Han Xiao also bought some painkillers. With all the materials, Han Xiao had learned enough blueprints. He decided to go into seclusion to create his own mech. In order not to be distracted, Han Xiao parked the plane at a secret location and suspended all other activities. 5 days later, Han Xiao rubbed the dark circles under his eyes. Looking at the finished product on the workbench, he revealed a relieved and relaxed smile. It's done. Successful. You have created your own blueprint. Please name the blueprint. Han Xiao muttered to himself. This lightweight mech was an imitation of the Viper mech. Many of the modules and functions were different from the original. He had changed a lot of things and thought of a suitable name. Naming successful. You have received the blueprint lightweight mech, Viper, modified. That's a good name. Han Xiao was satisfied. Viper's modified appearance was a pure black combat suit. The chest, abdominal muscles, thighs, and back were embedded with a thin layer of silver-gray platinum alloy as the outer layer of armor. Below the neck, in the center of the back, there was a circular space in the armor where a small bonfire reactor was embedded. It shone with a faint red light, and the gaps of the armor were filled with a thin layer of U9 colloidal bulletproof membrane. Its defensive capabilities were extremely high. The inner lining of the combat suit was filled with PE0 fibers, woven into muscle lines to increase strength. From the transparent bulletproof membrane, one could see that the lines of the black combat suit were similar to human muscles. The helmet was an integrated visor, and the mouth part was similar to a black metal mask. The material was breathable, and it was equipped with an air filter device. From a user's perspective, it was a tactical goggles and a panoramic analysis screen. All sorts of scanning data were listed on it, and the changes in the surrounding environment and the battlefield were clear at a glance. There were also various small weapon modules installed on the mech, Viper, modified type, battle uniformed light mech rarity, white basic attributes, 5, 600/5, 600 armor, 137 defense, 578 power level, 2, 600/2, 600 energy height, 1, 82 M weight, 108 LB control method. Human body control plus low-level smart chip energy source. Small bonfire reactor. Auto recharge. Restores 20 energy points per minute. If energy is used as fuel, energy consumption. 10/S energy recovery. 6/S standby mode consumption. 12 energy/min battle mode consumption. 28 energy/min core power output. 421/600 skeleton module, P0 nano synthetic fiber, biochemical tendon inner skeleton. Muscle strength can be strengthened according to the user's movements. Muscles harden when under attack, increasing physical performance. Plus 38 STR, plus 25 DX, plus 12 defense power output armor module. Platinum alloy plate, plus 1,800 armor, plus 30 defense. None power output armor module. U9 colloidal bulletproof membrane, plus 2,400 armor, plus 45 defense. None power output outer layer module. Optical camouflage, able to refract light to a certain extent. Power output, 20i module, electromagnetic scanning, thermal imaging, and night vision in one. Internal tactical holographic observation screen, power output, 25, right palm module. Thermal incisor gauntlet, inflicts high-temperature damage over time. Energy consumption, 1, 2/S, OP output, 94 power output, 50 left palm module. Thermal incisor gauntlet, as above right wrist module. Sunworm small flamethrower, energy consumption, 1/S, OP output, 98 power output, 45 left wrist module. Repulsive field driver, guided type, releases repulsive waves in a 150-degree direction. Range, 20 meters. Cooldown, 30 seconds. Each use, 10 energy consumption, 60 leg module. Electromagnetic powered hovering boots, energy consumption, 5 per minute, power output, 30 system module. Body condition monitor, power output, 5 system module. Smart fire control system, assist in aiming and shooting, power output, 5 system module. Target analysis database, power output, 5 accessory module. Rapid injection needle, equipped with painkiller, power output, 10 accessory module. Small spider detector X8, none power output accessory module. Electromagnetic pulse controller, grants excited status, plus 5% to all attributes for 15 minutes. Each use, 5 energy consumption, 10 accessory module. SUI anti-radar coating, none power output accessory module. Small radar, power output, 18 accessory module. Air filtration device, comes with oxygen storage function, can be independently supplied for 15 minutes. Power output, 8 accessory module. Thermostat device, power output, 10 additional ability, strong performance. Distributes energy to the biochemical tendons in battle mode, generating more power. Plus 40 STR, plus 20x additional ability. High toughness, uses platinum alloy and U9 colloidal bulletproof film, corrosion resistance, high temperature resistance remark. A successful replica. He could see the detailed information of the various modules by clicking on them, and he knew them all. Finally, the mechanical suit is done. Han Xiao was excited. He had almost 200,000 experience points. Viper modification mainly increased the individual strength of the soldiers. It was equipped with small weapon modules, such as the thermal incisor gauntlet, sunworm, repulsive field, and so on. The power output was not full yet, but there would be more suitable modules in the future. Viper modification increased Han Xiao's combat power to a whole new level, and it did not hinder him from using all kinds of guns, grenades, and other weapons. This mechanical suit was the second set of battle tactics. It provided more protection and increased his overall attributes. If he activated battle mode, the increase in strength would be even greater than his own attributes. He had the sniper style for long-range attacks and the mechanical suit for close-range attacks. Viper modification was very light and could be folded into a metal box to carry around. When he was not wearing the mechanical suit, he had the magnetic armor to protect himself. I need to test my actual combat power. Han Xiao decided on his next destination. He was going directly to the site of the tragedy of Robert Potter. Killing that beast boss was also part of his plan. The site of the tragedy of Robert Potter was now a forbidden area occupied by wild beasts. The mutated virus had strengthened the wild beasts in this area. This virus was called the Death Virus. On the barren brown land, a group of mutated rhinoceroses galloped past. They were huge, had bulging muscles, and hideous bone spikes like armor. The cone-shaped horns on their heads shone with a metallic luster. In the sky, a giant python with 4 pairs of bat wings flew across the sky and pounced on a corpse. On the ground beside the corpse, a blue flower, swaying in the wind, suddenly expanded into an abyss-like mouth. It swallowed the giant python in one gulp, and then resumed its harmless disguise. The wild beasts here have all mutated. At the edge of the forbidden area, Yang Dian and Ned observed the situation with binoculars. They were two solo superheroes who had received a request to enter the forbidden area to search for a trapped civilian exploration team. This civilian exploration team was in danger because they were investigating the source of the virus. In the eyes of the two, they were very noble and accepted their employer's request without hesitation. Originally, there was slight radiation in the Robert Potter area. This is also the reason for the mutation of the death virus, Ned said. According to the map of the exploration team before they went missing in a valley some distance away from us. There are many unknown dangers in there. We have to be careful. Chapter 175. On the other side of the Forbidden Zone, Han Xiao had arrived at his destination. The air was filled with an unpleasant stench of rot and slight toxins. The plants on the ground were all deformed. The range is a bit big. I don't know the location of the boss Beast King. Han Xiao put down the metal box in his hand and opened it. He quickly put on the modified Viper mech and observed the outside world through the holographic screen. Usually, it was the same as normal vision and could be zoomed in and out at any time. There were also various scanning modules on the screen, giving him a more detailed understanding of his surroundings. There was also a radar on the top left corner of the screen. The small radar could detect life signals within 1 kilometer in diameter and could reach up to 3 kilometers in power. The scanning and analysis module could analyze the traces on the ground and analyze what creatures had passed by a certain period of time. It could also analyze and record some unknown things and record them into the database. The filter made the rotten air fresh. Han Xiao could hear his own breathing. The thermostat of the mech made him very comfortable and not stuffy at all. He carried firearms and some grenades, which were all fixed to the rails of the mech. Fully armed, they did not affect his movements. Han Xiao moved his arms and legs and familiarized himself with the controls of the mech. With a spring of his legs, he jumped nearly 10 meters and entered the Forbidden Zone. He was now in standby mode. The bonfire reaction furnace recovered more energy than it consumed, so it was always at full power. The radar was always on. As long as there was a strong life signal, it could be the Beast King. Because the Beast King was not fixed every time, Han Xiao was not sure what species it was. After running for 5 minutes, more than 10 life signals appeared. Han Xiao used the password to adjust the zoom in and out of his vision. The scanning mirror in his eyes was enlarged like a sniper scope. The current control mode did not have a neural link, so he needed to use language to control various functions. The smart chip could analyze such simple commands, and Han Xiao also set up voice recognition. It could only recognize his voice and use it as a command. Others could not use it. A few hundred meters away, more than 10 giraffe-like beasts were resting. The ferocious bone spurs on their bodies showed that they were not docile at all. A few of the largest giraffes raised their heads and looked in his direction. They seemed to have discovered him. Stealth mode. The optical camouflage was activated. The surface of the mech became the color of the surrounding environment. It was like a chameleon. At first glance, it was impossible to find anything unusual. The gaps of the mech were sealed, so not a trace of smell leaked out. The giraffes shook their heads, but they didn't find him, so they lay down again. Enemies with high enough levels would be able to see through his concealment, but this group of wild beasts was still far from it. Han Xiao continued to move forward, searching for his target. 2 hours later, he had scanned dozens of mutated animals and plants and recorded them into the database. He also fought a few wild beasts with different signal strengths to enrich the data and determine the approximate level of each signal strength. The highest level wild beasts he had encountered so far were a group of level 42 wolf-like mastiffs. They were not the target he was looking for. The sky darkened. The Forbidden Zone was even more dangerous at night. All kinds of beast howls could be heard from different directions. Without a mech, the night in the Forbidden Zone was indeed very dangerous. However, the night could increase Viper's concealment ability and seal off his own scent and sound. He was like a rock inconspicuous. I haven't found the target yet. Han Xiao leaned against a huge rock and loaded yellow bullets into the magazine. His field of vision was changed to night vision. The database had recorded the areas he had been to. The possibility of the Beast King entrenched in the center of the Forbidden Zone was higher. That was the ruins of La Perte. The closer he was to the center of the Forbidden Zone, the more likely he would encounter wild beasts. Han Xiao gave a command. The leg armor on his calf suddenly opened up. There was a small space inside, which stored some mini spider detectors. Han Xiao activated the spider detectors and had them disperse to the center. Everything they saw would be reflected in his field of vision. The spider detectors shook their heads and left at a fast speed. After a while, Han Xiao also saw the situation in the center through the spider detector's cameras. He saw many ferocious wild beasts passing by. Suddenly, the image reflected by spider number 1 shook slightly. There was also the sound of violent collisions from afar. He saw that the wild beasts were gathering in a certain direction. Spider number 1 climbed onto the back of a boar and followed them. The image showed 2 supers being chased by all kinds of wild beasts. One of them was an esper who could release white shockwaves with his hands. The shockwaves were quite powerful, and they repelled the wild beasts that approached them time and time again. However, the sound it made attracted more wild beasts. It was a vicious cycle. There are others in the Forbidden Zone. Han Xiao raised his eyebrows. The next moment, he saw a 5-meter-tall, 10-meter-long giant white lion appear. Wherever it passed, the other beasts avoided it in fear. Those that did not avoid it were bitten to death by this giant white lion, crushing a path through the crowd of beasts. Han Xiao's eyes sparkled. This was most likely the Beast King. Yang Dian and Ned were running for their lives. They were out of breath, and their lungs were burning. Behind them were hundreds of mutated beasts and a giant white lion whose aura was so terrifying that they couldn't even muster up the will to fight. It's all because of your Esper ability. The sound attracted the wild beasts, Yang Dian said angrily. Ned slapped his palm backward, and a white shockwave spread out, pushing back the approaching beasts again. Hearing that, he said angrily, "Shut up. If it weren't for your carelessness, we could have sneaked past that pack of wolves. Stop talking nonsense. What should we do now?" Yang Dian took out his tablet to browse the map while running. "We are approaching the center of the Forbidden Zone. It's very dangerous. Quickly change directions." The two of them quickly changed directions. The wild beasts were chasing them, and the giant white lion was the closest to them. Ned's shockwaves could only stop it for a moment. It could not even make the white lion retreat. Ned was sweating profusely, and his energy was running out. This time, a broken wall suddenly appeared in front of them. There was a crack at the bottom that was just big enough for a human to roll in. The two of them were overjoyed. "Hide in there." Suddenly, Ned realized that a giant shadow was rapidly expanding under his feet. He turned around in shock. The white lion jumped into the air and slapped down with its giant claws. The wind was so strong that Ned could not even open his eyes. The pressure almost suffocated him. "You go first," Yang Dian yelled. He pushed Ned away and threw a punch at the incoming claw. Thick blue flames wrapped around his arm. He was a martial artist. His body was strong, and he could take more hits than Ned. He thought that it should not be a problem for him to block this attack. The fist and the claw crashed into each other. A series of cracking sounds were heard. Yang Dian's arm was fractured, and a few of his ribs were also broken by the shockwaves. He spat out a mouthful of blood and flew dozens of meters away like a small stone. He plowed a hole in the ground, and blood flowed out of his mouth and nose. Ned hurriedly pulled him into the crack. The claw that followed dug into the crack, and rocks flew everywhere. The two of them almost could not escape. Such terrifying strength. Yang Dian was in so much pain that his face twitched. He, a powerful martial artist, was severely injured by a single attack. This lion's strength was shocking. Ned was even more shocked. He knew how strong his companion was, but he could not even take a single hit from the white lion. This time they were doomed. Surrounded by wild beasts, the two of them had no choice but to rely on the crack to survive. They would die if they stuck their heads out. The wild beasts could not squeeze in. They dug into the crack with their claws, trying to dig a bigger hole. The sounds of collisions made the two of them shudder. Yang Jian took out bandages and ointment to treat his wounds. They might have to fight to the death next, so he could only endure the pain and recover. Beside him, Ned was also using all his strength to recover. Chapter 176. The beasts are starting to kill each other. Both of them were overjoyed and decided to wait and see. The battle between the beasts lasted for more than half an hour, leaving behind corpses all over the ground. The white lion was the final winner. The blood of the other beasts stained its white fur. It stood majestically in front of the crack and roared at the remaining beasts. Its roar was as loud as thunder, indicating that it was its prey. The beasts all turned around and retreated, leaving the prey to the king. Although the beasts had left, the most powerful white lion was still guarding outside. The crack was dug open, and the hole gradually expanded. Soon, the two would not be able to hide anymore. Their hearts sank to the bottom of the valley. Ned pursed his lips and said with a serious expression, "You're too heavily injured. You go and be the bait. I might be able to survive." Yang Jian looked down at his heavily injured body and said helplessly, "I can't escape. It's better to have one dead than all dead. If you can survive, remember to take care of my family. Don't worry. I'll raise your children and take care of your wife." They looked at each other and fell silent for a while. Suddenly, they smiled bitterly. "Stop talking nonsense. If we die together." Yang Jian struggled to stand up and said with a hoarse voice, "Let's fight." Ned nodded. His hands lit up with white light, ready to attack. Just as the two of them were about to rush out of the crack and fight to the death, a blue light suddenly swept across the night sky and hit the white lion's left eye. The eyeball exploded with a bang, and blood splattered everywhere. Only then did the two of them hear the faint sound of a gunshot. The white lion roared and rushed toward the direction of the gunshot like a madman. The two of them were shocked, then overjoyed. "Someone's helping." 500 meters away, Han Xiao was lying on the ground, holding the ghost sniper rifle. The circuit on the rifle was glowing with blue light. Through the scope, he saw the white lion's left eye drenched in blood and rushing toward him. This shot was enhanced by Flaming Will. His luck was not bad, and the damage was two times. Together with Overload, Critical Hit, and Sneak Attack Critical Hit, the actual damage was 1,800 points. It was the highest damage he had ever dealt. However, the white lion was still alive and kicking. Han Xiao looked at the interface. This white lion was indeed a beast king. Its real name was Mutant White Lion King. It was a level 56 wild beast and had many molding abilities of wild beasts. Its HP was over 18,000, and this shot had only shaved off 1/9 of its HP. It also had the debuff of vision loss. Mutant White Lion King level, 56 HP, 15724/18700 status. Minus 50% vision, moderate bleeding stats, 135 STR, 126 DX, 240 YND, 30 INT, 22 MYS, 31 CHA, 24 LUK. Its attributes were very high, and it also had many talents and skills. Among them, there was a very dangerous molding skill called Fury. As its HP decreased, it would greatly increase its movement speed, attack speed, and attack power. This was a boss that should have been dealt with by a small team. Han Xiao was here alone. With the capabilities of the mecha, he could reduce the risk. Han Xiao got up and slid backward, firing continuously with his sniper rifle. Although he was wearing Viper, he would not directly engage in close combat. Coordination was the way to go. The combination of sniping and the mecha gave him an advantage in both close and range combat. The mecha's scanning module showed the surrounding terrain. Han Xiao did not need to look back. The mecha automatically retreated along the best route, so he could focus on dealing damage. After kiting for a while, Han Xiao emptied all the bullets of the Red Falcon and Berserk Eagle. The mutant White Lion King was finally within a few dozen meters. He stopped retreating and rushed forward. Switch to combat mode. Han Xiao yelled. The bonfire reactor on his back lit up and buzzed. Electricity was transmitted through the bioelectric wires. The muscles of the mecha suddenly expanded, and more power burst out. As he clenched his fist, he could feel the tyrannical power in the mecha. The additional attributes of the mecha almost doubled his strength and dexterity. Yang Dian and Ned saw from afar that Han Xiao was about to clash head-on with the White Lion King. They were shocked and quickly shouted, "Dodge! Don't engage in close combat with him." This mysterious man in the mecha was here to save them. He was their hope. The scene of Yang Dian being crushed was still fresh in their minds. This mysterious man was very likely to repeat the same mistake. Such a small human actually chose to clash head-on with such a huge beast. It was like hitting a rock with an egg. The collision between a human and a lion would definitely result in a crushing scene. The two could not bear to see this scene. However, the mysterious man was not sent flying as they expected. Instead, the White Lion King roared in pain. The huge White Lion King was actually pushed back, and half of Han Zhao's body was buried in the ground. Their strength was actually on par. Han Zhao's weight was smaller. He channeled his strength into the ground, so he was not sent flying. He exerted force in his legs and suddenly bounced up from the ground. His leg hit the White Lion King's head like a whip, creating a loud bang and creating ripples in the air. The White Lion King's skull was obviously deformed. Its huge body actually rolled out and landed heavily on the ground. Oh my God! Yang Dian and Ned were stunned by this scene. The difference in size between the two was dozens of times. The terrifying White Lion King actually lost to the mysterious man in terms of strength. Yang Dian's throat was dry. This scene was too shocking. What he cannot do did not mean that others could not. He had fought some stronger martial artists before, and he felt that none of them were on par with the White Lion King. However, this mysterious man was so strong. What kind of mecha is that? I've never heard of it. Yang Dian was shocked. Ned's eyes widened. Could it be the secret research of some big organization's laboratory? In battle mode, Viper gave Han Xiao 78 points of strength and 45 points of dexterity. Han Zhao's strength and dexterity attributes were higher than the White Lion King's and comparable to a martial artist of the same level. What was more terrifying was that his overload could increase the attributes of Viper. Han Xiao had noticed Yang Dian and Ned long ago. He did not know what they were, so he did not bother with them. He controlled the mecha and fought with the mutant White Lion King. Every punch and kick had extremely high strength damage. The bonfire reactor continuously provided energy, and the tall armor blocked the White Lion King's attacks. It was a waste to use only his fists and kicks. Han Xiao activated the thermoelectric incisor gauntlets, which had burn damage and left horrifying burns. The sunworm spewed out flames and ignited the White Lion King's beautiful fur, burning it black. It was a tragic scene. The man and the lion fought like wild beasts. The ground became bumpy. The two people in the distance felt the tremors like an earthquake and watched this fierce battle in shock. Han Xiao was small and agile, so he had the upper hand. Although the White Lion King's attacks were getting fiercer and fiercer, Han Xiao was able to dodge most of them. Even if he hit the White Lion King, he could not break through the armor of the mecha. Yang Dian and Ned wanted to help, but they realized that they could not. If they helped recklessly, they might even become a burden. Furthermore, they could not bring themselves to abandon their reinforcements and run away. They could only watch nervously from the side, feeling extremely helpless. At the same time, the two of them were very surprised by Han Zhao's mecha. They had never heard of any country developing such a powerful single combat equipment. Blue Star's mecha research had been progressing very slowly. It was rumored that only Theseus had a prototype exoskeleton mecha. However, it was extremely cumbersome and could not increase the user's physical performance. The level of this mysterious mecha was beyond their knowledge. In a galactic civilization, single combat mechas were the standard equipment of ordinary soldiers. To reduce the gap between them and supers, mechas were also very cost-effective weapons for the players. Chapter 177. The White Lion King leaped up and used its ability to kill. The wind was close to his head, but Han Zhao's expression did not change. He aimed his arm at the sky and activated the repulsive field driver. An invisible repulsive wave shot out from his wrist, and the White Lion King was pushed up into the air, landing heavily on the ground. Han Zhao activated many modules, and the energy of the mechanical suit slowly decreased. After countless punches, the White Lion King's health dropped to about 30%. The White Lion King roared at the sky, and its skin turned blood red. It entered a stronger state of rage. If it were a player, it would be entering the second stage. Han Zhao felt the pressure suddenly increase. It's best not to fight head-on in rage. Han Zhao chose to avoid it and retreated. Being able to fight and run was his battle style. After chasing for a while, the White Lion King slowed down and showed signs of fatigue. At this time, the cooldown of Flaming Will was over. Han Zhao picked up the Ghost Sniper rifle and fired at the other eye of the mutant White Lion King. This was the highest multiplier of Flaming Will, 1 times. Oh my god! With one shot, the remaining eye exploded. The White Lion King was heavily injured and fell into the dust, unable to move. It only had a few hundred health points left. It's dead. Han Zhao heaved a sigh of relief. The modified version of Viper was much more powerful than he had expected. It made up for the weakness of the mechanic's physical attributes, and it was more reliable in close combat. Furthermore, it was very comprehensive. Viper was the cornerstone of the second battle plan. Just like how the sniper style was slowly taking shape, the mechanical suit also needed to be perfected with new modules. It was currently just a prototype. This battle was a practical test. Han Zhao secretly analyzed the direction of the modification of the mechanical suit. There was room for improvement in long range, close combat, and stealth. Han Zhao finished off the White Lion King, took out his retractable knife, and dug out the heart of the mutant White Lion King. It was the size of a basketball and covered in purple blood vessels. You have received special item, Mutant Heart. X1, you have triggered the mission, Virus Research. Mission Introduction. All the beasts in this area are infected by the death virus. Some organizations need samples that are strong enough for research. That's right, I'm talking about the heart in your hand. Mission requirements. Deliver the mutated heart to the Lewis Institute of Biological Research within 7 days. Reward. 1 death virus potion. This quest was an additional reward triggered by the heart. Handing over the heart would grant a potion that permanently increased one's attributes. There was also a chance to awaken a rare talent. In Shurfeng's previous life, every time a Beast King boss spawned in the Laubert area, it would be hunted down and killed by players within a few hours. Because the potion made from the death virus could be used repeatedly, the large guilds had always occupied the area to farm these monsters. The Lewis Biological Research Institute was a public large-scale biological research institute. Players could use all sorts of strange materials to exchange for the same strange potions. Some of the potions were sold openly, and it was located in Maple. Han Zhao took out the prepared liquid nitrogen metal box and put the lion's heart inside. At this time, Yang Dian and Ned walked up hesitantly as they heard footsteps. Thank you for your help. Yang Dian studied Viper's modified visor curiously. Unfortunately, he couldn't see Han Zhao's face. Han Zhao didn't say anything. He checked his ammo and armor, then got up and left. The smell of blood here would attract wild beasts. He needed to find a place to rest quickly. The two of them looked at each other awkwardly and understood each other's intentions. They hurriedly caught up to Han Zhao, introduced themselves, and said hopefully, "We came to the Robert Forbidden Zone to save an exploration team." In order to solve the problem of the virus, they entered deep into the Robert Forbidden Zone alone and have lost contact with them. We hope you can help us. You have triggered a Level D mission. Save the exploration team. Do you accept? Reject. Han Zhao waved his hand and adjusted his voice to a synthetic voice. Don't bother me. The success rate of saving people was too low. The longer they stayed in the area, the more danger they would be in. Han Zhao's only goal was the mutated heart. He had already completed his goal, so there was no need to waste time. He didn't want to be led by the nose by the mission. They're in danger because of the virus. How can you leave them in the lurch? Ned said anxiously. Han Zhao activated his hover boots and left. His meaning was clear. You could do whatever you want, but don't involve me. The two of them watched helplessly as Han Zhao left. Not everyone was as kind as them. The two understood that, but they could only regret that they had lost a powerful helper. After leaving the Laubert forbidden area, Han Zhao returned to the transport plane parked far away. He took off his mechanical suit and heaved a sigh of relief. Viper's performance was excellent. He was very satisfied with the results. The plane took off, and the next stop was Maple. Contact Lewis Research Institution, exchange the heart for medicine, and complete the threat mission. The contact of the Blood Pack Society was also in Maple. Han Zhao looked at the mission brief on the computer. My contacts are 2 assassins. This name sounds familiar. Golden Fox? I think I've seen it somewhere. Han Zhao raised an eyebrow, but didn't think much of it. He opened the forums and focused on the problems of the players. There were still 2 novice villages left in the Western continent, and the newbies that were crying piteously for food. The average level of the players was almost LV10. At this stage in Han Zhao's previous life, they had already started to leave the novice villages on a large scale. However, because of Han Zhao's existence, a portion of the players obediently stayed in the novice villages, waiting for Han Zhao's arrival. This felt great. His actions had indirectly influenced the behavior of the players. It was all thanks to his actions during this period of time that he had gained a certain amount of influence among the players. Looking at the forums, a few new posts caught his attention. Most of the people who posted were players from the Andria continent, complaining. Please ask, why did the Germinal organization come to the novice villages to capture people? I've been brainwashed. My faction is locked, and even my favorability is gone. How did this happen? The NPC cut me into pieces and asked me about my background. Me too. Is this an unexpected plot? But I don't have any interface notifications. The players recorded the actions of the Germinal organization in the novice villages. The fully armed Germinal organization soldiers handcuffed the players one by one. Some players resisted, and the Germinal organization soldiers shot them directly. The bullets were tranquilizers. A bunch of players were handcuffed and sat in the carriage. It was very crowded. Only the railings of the carriage door could see the outside world. It was like a prison cell. Then, these players were brought to the Germinal organization bases. On the Andria continent, the Germinal organization bases were not as secretive as the bases in the other 3 continents. Every base of the headquarters was very large, ostentatious, and heavily guarded. The land of the Andria continent was bare and brown. If one looked down from a satellite, they would see that the Germinal organization bases were black areas scattered on the yellow land, like infected patches. This abandoned continent was full of radiation and dust, and life was withering. The Germinal organization took over many old country ruins and inherited many facilities, including the former military forbidden zones. The inhuman incident has begun. Han Zhao's eyes flashed. He had experienced this incident in his previous life. It had caused a lot of discussion among the players, and it was the hottest topic at that time. The curiosity of the NPCs toward the players was the core attraction of Galaxy. The existence of the players was a part of the story. Every novice planet showed different attitudes toward the players, and now, Blue Star was the earliest sign of this incident. In the past, Han Zhao watched the show as a player. Now that he had a different perspective, he felt that he should be able to see something else. I made the Germinal organization lose all of their bases. Fewer players will join their faction. The Germinal organization will probably realize how big of a loss they have suffered. He felt very happy when he imagined the scene of the leader being angry. Turning on the computer, Han Zhao browsed the information on the darknet. The existence of the players had been noticed by more forces. The natives of Blue Star were surprised by this group of uninvited guests. I think the Six Nations will take action soon. This way, the expedition war will be delayed for a while, but it will be much earlier than in my previous life. Han Xiao narrowed his eyes. There were pros and cons to bringing forward the war. The good thing was that the players had not grown up yet. When the Six Nations and the Germinal organization clashed head-on, the role of the players would be greatly reduced, and there would be fewer unexpected factors. With the Six Nations' strength, as long as the players did not cause trouble, they would be able to beat the Germinal organization. Chapter 178. Star Dragon Capital, West Capital, Division 13 Headquarters, underground of the Dragonhorn Building. Gu Hui, the deputy director, and the 13 directors gathered in a secret meeting room. Gu Hui pressed a button on the table, and the door was sealed. The windows were closed, and all surveillance equipment was disabled. Gu Hui's expression was serious. He distributed the paper files to all the members in the meeting. They were stamped with the seal of the highest authority, which meant that this was confidential information that had been reviewed by the highest authority. It contained the observation of the inhuman phenomenon. 5 days ago, there was a rumor about the existence of inhumans on the dark net. After investigation, it has been confirmed that it is not a rumor. The files are very clear that the inhuman phenomenon is spreading like a virus in all the continents. They appear out of nowhere, and their origins are unknown. According to the information circulating on the darknet, the Inhumans have the following characteristics. Gu Hui explained. It was similar to the preliminary research of the Germinal organization. They could disappear in a thin air and would not die. He also added, according to the observation, the Inhumans are generally not strong, and the threat is considered low. But if we don't stop the inhuman phenomenon, it might spread like an epidemic and become a disaster, someone said in a low voice. Gu Hui nodded. The highest authority has given the order to contact these Inhumans. This is the most important mission now. Then what about the expedition? The resources have been gathered, and the army is ready. We can go to Andria at any time. The highest authority has reached a consensus with the leaders of the other countries to stop the expedition and find out what the inhuman phenomenon is. This is related to a greater security risk. Gu Hui knocked on the table and looked at everyone seriously. Let our people bring some Inhumans back. It's best to be friendly when we don't know their origins. The field director said, some agents have infiltrated Andria. Should we call them back? No, let them continue to spy. We have enough manpower in the country, Gu Hui said. When we have a conclusion, maybe the highest authority will try to ask for help from the galactic civilizations to find an answer. As the level of the players increased, their behavior became more active, which attracted the attention of various organizations. The Six Nations, the Wanderers, the Darknet, and the large financial groups were all paying attention to the inhuman phenomenon. They sent people to contact them with different attitudes, either gentle or cold. Only the Germinal organization was the most extreme. They captured the players of Andria and forced the players in the novice village to leave the novice village early. In fact, the players did not really care which faction they joined, but if they were forced to, they would be conflicted. The Germinal organization did not leave a good impression on the players. As for the players who were captured, they could only accept their fate. The players of the Andria continent lived a hard life every day, and their gaming experience was terrible. However, this phenomenon surprised the players. Why would the NPCs be surprised by their existence? They were not rigid at all and seemed like real people. More factions began to contact the players, and more players encountered similar situations. Their interest was immediately piqued, and they actively speculated on the forums, suppressing the popularity of other topics. The players from the other novice planets had not encountered a similar situation yet. They all flocked to the Blue Star board to watch the show, and their traffic jumped to the highest among all the novice planets. There were hundreds of new posts every second. The enthusiasm of the players was phenomenal. All sorts of speculations emerged. Speculations similar to Electrolux were put forward. This was the most reasonable explanation to the public, but the game officials did not make any announcements. The players could only guess blindly. Many players had their imaginations running wild. Actually, we are all samsara travelers. We are opening up a new world in the God space. Number A12651 reporting for duty. Nonsense. We are the expeditionary force of Earth to invade another dimension. We have a great mission. Earth Federation's 798th Space Fleet Lieutenant He De Zhuang is on standby. Earth will win. You're all wrong. This is actually the real world. Earth is just a dream. Humph. Young people, everything is set up by the elders. You are too naive. Hee hee. This is the first step of Skynet's rule over humanity. One day, our consciousness will be trapped in the game. Long live Hydra. The person above is in the wrong place. Sigh. I'm a retired soldier from the 1999 battle. Now that I think about it, it was a dark time. The person above is in good shape. You're still playing virtual online games at such an old age. All sorts of speculations formed a trend on the forums. The players had their imaginations running wild, laughing and joking, and it became a meme. In general, the forces that came into contact with the players were probing and cautious. This made it easier for the players to trigger factions, which was actually beneficial. Only the players of Andrea were being hunted down and complained incessantly. Han Xiao was paying attention to the development of the situation. He had the intelligence network of the Darknet and the forum, so he could see much more than the players or NPCs. The major forces were cautious and serious, while the players were surprised and thought it was fun. The two sides had completely different attitudes. Interesting. Han Xiao raised his eyebrows. The influence of the Inhuman incident was slowly fermenting. The various forces were gradually studying the characteristics of the players. Those powerful players in my previous life must have had their own opportunities. Han Xiaoxin thought. Blue Star was the headquarters of China. There would always be a small number of lucky players who would have opportunities that normal players would not have. The plot was on the right track. Han Xiao seized the time to act. There was a time limit to the mission of changing the heart, so he first went to Maple to submit the mission. The Lewis Research Institute was located in Maple City, Kenlos. This time, it was not at the border, so Han Xiao snuck in alone. It would take him 2 days to reach his destination. Maple was a country that lacked vitality. The bureaucratic system was rigid, and the distribution of wealth was uneven. The resources were tightly controlled by the oligarchs, and the people of the lower class had no room for improvement. The best way to describe the civilians of Maple was to just eat and wait for death. Walking on the streets, the pedestrians with sad faces passed by him. Han Xiao rubbed his face. He felt that a sunny, confident, and stylish man like him did not fit in with the decadent people around him. This time, Han Xiao changed his face and wore glasses. He did not believe that he would be recognized again. The Lewis Research Institute was tall and had a very technological atmosphere. It was silver white, and the people walking in and out were all wearing white coats. It was as if they were afraid that others would not know that they were doing research. As soon as he walked in, there was a receptionist who greeted him with a courteous smile. Hello, do you need me to introduce the business scope of the Lewis Research Institute to you? Han Xiao waved the metal box in his hand. I have the heart of a creature infected by the death virus. Maybe one of your researchers will be interested in it. Please wait for a moment. I'll go ask my superiors. The receptionist led Han Xiao to the sofa in the hall and left. The Lewis Research Institute accepted all kinds of outsourced experiments, so there were often customers. Han Xiao leaned on the sofa and looked around the hall. The structure was circular, like a hotel lobby. After a while, 2 people walked into the hall with bandages wrapped around their bodies. Han Xiao's nose twitched, and he smelled blood. He looked up and realized that these 2 were the superheroes that he had met in Robert Potter's Forbidden Zone. These 2 seemed to have gone to save an exploration team. Could it be the team from the Lewis Research Institute? From the looks of it, he failed and was injured all over. Chapter 179. Yang Jian and Ned were frustrated. The exploration team they had gone to rescue was a member of the Lewis Research Institution, and the client was also the Lewis Research Institution. After Han Xiao left, the two of them rested for a while and searched carefully. Finally, they found their target in the small valley where the exploration team had disappeared. However, all the members of the exploration team were infected with the death virus and mutated. Bone spikes protruded from their bodies, turning them into frenzied beasts. There was no saving them. The leader of the exploration team barely maintained his consciousness. He gave a metal box to the two, saying that it was an important material that could be used to develop an antidote for the death virus. He asked them to bring it back to the institution. The two could only bear the pain and abandon the exploration team that was beyond saving and leave the forbidden area with the box. They were attacked by a group of beasts on the way. In order to protect the metal box, they did not hesitate to use their bodies to protect it. In the end, they were lucky enough to escape with wounds all over their bodies. Fortunately, the box was intact. Dragging their tired bodies, they took a flight back to Canlos. Yang Dian and Ned came to the institution with guilty feelings. They were already mentally prepared to be blamed by the institution for not being able to save the exploration team. They felt that they had failed the client's trust. A man wearing glasses who seemed to be a high-ranking person walked out of the elevator and quickly walked toward Yang Dian and Ned with hope on his face. "Heroes, you're back." His tone was very warm. Ned said apologetically, "Mr. Kate, I'm sorry. We couldn't complete the mission." Kate's expression changed. "Could it be that they've all been killed?" "I'm sorry. They were infected. We couldn't do anything." Yang Dian did not dare to look at Kate's sad face. "It's not your fault." Kate took off his glasses and wiped his eyes. His attitude made Yang Dian and Ned very uncomfortable. Ned took out the metal box and said, "This is the relic that the exploration team asked us to pass to you. It contains important material that can solve the death virus's source." Kate took the metal box and stroked it. He said in a pained tone, "Sigh, if only they could come back. This is their contribution, and we will never forget it. If we make a product, we will definitely name it after them." The two agreed. Yang Dian sighed and said, "They are heroes. Not being able to save them will be the regret of my life." "You're exaggerating. If it weren't for you, they wouldn't have been able to transfer their efforts. You've done your best, so don't blame yourselves. If you don't mind, we can treat you for free," Kate said gratefully. "No need. I can't trouble you anymore." The more grateful Kate was, the more ashamed Yang Dian and Ned felt. They quickly waved their hands and refused the invitation. Holding each other, they left with their backs straight and proud. Kate adjusted his glasses and watched the two leave. Then he walked up to Han Xiao and smiled. "Hello. Do you have any business to entrust to our research institute?" Han Xiao smiled and opened the metal box to show Kate the mutated heart. "This is a heart infected by the death virus. The source is a very powerful individual." Kate's eyes lit up, and he forced a smile. "Please follow me." Kate led the way in front, and Han Xiao followed him into the elevator. When they reached the 13th floor, they saw a long white corridor with laboratories on both sides. The windows were double-sided, and one could see inside from the outside. Some of the laboratories had people doing experiments, and some of the rooms were filled with experimental equipment and materials. There were also researchers chatting in the corridor with nothing to do. The 13th floor was one of the laboratories of Lewis Research Institution. Kate led the way and said, "The death virus has always been an important research project, but we've always been at a bottleneck because we lack active materials. This heart is very important to us, and we might be able to make a potion in one go. As usual, you will receive a finished product after the potion is made. Of course, if you want other rewards, that's not a problem." "No, I want the potion." Han Xiao pointed at the metal box in Kate's hand, which was what Yang Dian and Ned gave him. "I thought you already had the materials." This is also a very important thing." Kate smiled, but didn't explain in detail. When they arrived at a large biological laboratory, Kate stopped and said, "Please wait outside. Unauthorized personnel are not allowed to enter." Han Xiao gave the box to Kate, and Kate walked into the laboratory with the two boxes. He started talking with someone who seemed to be the supervisor of the laboratory. The two boxes were opened on the table, and Han Xiao saw that the other box contained a snow-white egg. He had no idea what kind of creature it belonged to. Kate and the supervisor talked in a low voice. Han Xiao's ears twitched, and his LV-55 senses took in the conversation. "What about the exploration team? Are they all dead?" The supervisor asked. "Yeah, those two heroes didn't manage to save anyone," Kate said. "Luckily, the stuff was transferred. It doesn't matter if they died. With this heart, we can make the potion very soon." "What did those two heroes say?" "They felt that they betrayed our trust." Haha, hiring superheroes is much more cost-effective than hiring mercenaries. As long as we give them a good reason, they will even work for us for free. It's saving a lot of money. You didn't expose yourself, did you? Of course not. They were stupid and naive. Just a few words of lies, and they were so moved that they almost cried. These so-called heroes are the easiest to coax. Praise and gratitude can make them dizzy. When they left, they thought that they had done something great. I almost couldn't hold back my laughter. Don't offend superheroes. Try to make friends with them. Don't worry, I left a good impression on them. Next time, if you need anything, you can find them. As long as you come up with a good reason, they definitely won't reject you. Han Zhao's eyes flashed, but his expression didn't change. He waited quietly. After a while, Kate ended the conversation and returned to the door. He said with a polite smile, "It will take a day to make the potion. If you don't mind, we will provide a room for you to rest in. The potion will be handed to you as soon as it is done." Okay. Han Xiao had no objections. The two of them took the elevator to the residential floor, and Han Xiao was assigned a guest suite. Kate instructed him not to wander around before excusing himself. Han Xiao looked around the room to see if there were any cameras. He found two, so he took out his computer, hacked into the network, and controlled the cameras in the room. He froze the image and played it on a loop. Then, he directly hacked into the database of the Research Institute and browsed through the various research projects. His basic programming was maxed out. His hacking skills were enough to break through most of the firewalls in Blue Star's network. Apart from the Six Nations secrets, the Germinal organization's headquarters, the core of the Darknet, and a few other important networks, a small research institute couldn't stop him. It was as if he had entered a no-man's land. He didn't trigger any alarms in the Research Institute. After he finished reading, he would even erase the traces. No one would know that he had hacked into the network. He opened the Research Institute's project file, and the projects flashed on the screen. Green lizard potion, bull hormone, thunderclaw extract, grouper plague pathogen. Many of the names were potions that players had obtained in his previous life. After a while, he finally saw the Death Virus Project. Its full name was Death Virus Enhancement Potion. In the project's detailed records, there were funds from various financial groups. This was an experiment to enhance one's physical strength. As for the Death Virus Antidote that Kate told Yang Jian and Ned about, the Research Institute didn't do any research on it. Han Zhao's eyes flashed. He quickly typed on the keyboard and installed the program. Chapter 180. After a night's rest, Kate returned the next day with a metal box. He placed the box on a coffee table and patted it lightly. "The potion is ready." Han Xiao opened the box. Inside was a tube of thick, crimson-red potion. He touched it, and a notification appeared on the interface. Death Virus Enhancer. Low concentration 3. 5% of potion created by a mutated virus. The essence is extracted and can be used by humans. High stability. Effect, STR +1, DX +1. Chance to awaken, extraordinary physique. Note, don't be fooled by its color. The taste is, it's only low concentration. You gave me the lowest quality potion. Han Xiao closed the box and smiled. "I'm very satisfied. I look forward to working with you again," Kate said politely. "There's no need to look forward to it. I want to buy more. Do you have any stock?" Lewis only provides long-term batches of products to large customers. If you're a single customer, especially a single customer with unknown origins, we're in a difficult position. I hope you can understand. If you can prove that you have the ability to pay for the long term, we'll sell you the potion in batches. Kate's face showed just the right amount of awkwardness. It was as if he wanted to agree, but could only reject because of the rules. However, in the eyes of a veteran like Han Xiao, it was deliberate. He was most likely raising the price. Han Xiao smiled mysteriously and adjusted his collar. Let me formally introduce myself. I'm the executive officer of the Germinal organization, Heisenberg. Kate ate half a kilogram. The Germinal organization? Didn't they leave the Western continent? Is this Heisenberg a secret executive, or is he a liar? Forgive me for being blunt, but your identity is very suspicious. Kate took 2 steps back and reached into his pocket to grab the alarm. As long as Han Xiao made a move, he would trigger the alarm. Don't be nervous. Give me a moment. Han Xiao carried his backpack and walked into the toilet. Why is he going to the toilet? Kate was confused. Just as he was confused, Han Xiao, who had changed into Viper, walked out. This high-tech mechanical suit instantly stunned Kate. You are... Han Xiao swung his arms and said in an electronically synthesized voice through the helmet. This is the latest single-soldier mechanical suit that the Germinal organization has developed. If you have good eyes, you should be able to see that the technology in it is very advanced. Even the official laboratories of the 6 nations do not have this kind of technology. You don't have to worry that I am a liar. This is a secret project of the organization, so it should be able to prove my identity. Kate opened his mouth and felt that something was wrong. But I know what you're worried about. If you want to find the emblem of the Germinal organization on the mechanical suit, save your energy. Times are tough now, and it's dangerous to be too high profile. I've been given full authority to handle this matter. If you want to contact the higher-ups of the organization, forgive me for being blunt, but you're not qualified yet. Han Zhao's tone was so serious that he almost believed what he said. Kate hesitated. I need to discuss this with the other higher-ups. He walked to the side and turned on his tablet to contact the other higher-ups. They were all supervisors of a laboratory, and they were all surprised by Han Zhao's background. He can't prove his background. He can't be trusted. Do you want him to shout, "I am the Germinal organization everywhere"? I don't think he needs to lie. When the deal is done, we will know if it's true or not. That makes sense. But working with the Germinal organization seems a little dangerous, Han Xiao interrupted. All our deals are confidential. If we don't say anything, no one will know. We can even sponsor you to set up a branch in Andrea. The eyes of the higher-ups of the research institute lit up. Andrea was full of radiation, and there were many mutated animals and plants. Others avoided it like a tiger, but it was a treasure trove for them. They had heard about the generosity of the Germinal organization, but they could not tolerate the corruption of the officials in Maple. A change of environment seemed like a good idea. Even if they did not move the headquarters, it would be good to set up a research branch in Andrea. Then let's try a deal. Take him to the exhibition room. After reaching a conclusion, Kate quickly smiled and said, "We agree to the deal. Heisenberg, please follow me. I will show you the results of our research." Han Xiao nodded. Without taking off his mechanical suit, he followed Kate into the elevator to the 2nd basement floor. The pharmaceutical exhibition room looked like a refrigerator door. After Kate entered the password, the door slid open automatically. Inside was a dark compound room divided into 2 levels. The metal stairs connected the 2 levels. There were glass cabinets by the wall with different colors of drugs. The labels had their names and experimental results. There were a few finished products of each drug, labeled with different concentrations. These are the results of the Research Institute. What kind of drugs does your organization need? Kate asked with a smile. Han Xiao pretended to look around and said, "Every kind. Money is not a problem. It depends on whether you have enough." The higher-ups who were watching the situation through the camera were overjoyed. This was a big order. Han Xiao raised his eyebrows. But I have to check the effects of the drugs first. Kate opened the door of the cabinet and took out a bottle of drugs. He handed it to Han Xiao. Han Xiao looked at the information on the interface. It was a temporary buff. After drinking it, one would gain a buff, endurance +3, for 3 minutes. After confirming that the drugs in the cabinet were real, Han Xiao said, "I want a lot of them. Kate received the order through his earpiece. He took out his laptop and opened the price page. He smiled and said, "We have enough stock. After you pay, these cute little things are all yours." Han Xiao narrowed his eyes. "I will only pay if I see the goods with my own eyes." "You're exaggerating. We're just a civilian organization. We wouldn't dare to offend a huge organization like yours. We won't go back on our word. I hope you can understand our concerns. Besides, your organization doesn't lack this bit of money." Kate was all smiles and his attitude was firm. "Looks like I can only lie to this extent." Han Zhao's eyes flashed. He did not plan to pay at all. He took out his gun and pointed it at Kate's forehead. He said coldly, "This is my payment." Bang! The tablet fell to the ground. The threat of the gun made Kate tremble. He said, "You are a fake." Han Xiao did not answer. He shot at the cabinet. However, the bulletproof glass cracked and did not break. The higher-ups in the monitoring room were shocked. "He wants to steal our results. Luckily, we brought him to the exhibition room. There are safety measures there." The metal door of the exhibition room suddenly closed and locked. The cabinet was retracted into the wall, leaving no trace. The room became empty. The ceiling moved, revealing 3 rows of black holes. The range of the gun covered the entire room. There was no blind spot. Han Xiao and Kate were both under the gun muzzles. The higher-ups of the Research Institute said proudly. Chapter 181. The higher-ups of the Research Institute were very angry. They felt like they had been played like a monkey. However, since the swindler had walked right into their trap, they immediately gloated. Did he not know whose territory this was? How dare he come here and cause trouble? In the exhibition room, Kate's expression did not change. He calmly stepped back and adjusted his collar. He looked at Han Xiao arrogantly and said, "If you do anything, such as trying to take me hostage, you will immediately become a civ. So, don't think about taking risks. Put down your gun and surrender obediently. Then you can still live." Han Xiao raised his head and looked at the dark defensive machine gun array. In the corner of the ceiling, there was a surveillance camera. The higher-ups were watching his every move through the surveillance camera. He also knew that the vent could release nerve gas. He was expressionless as he spoke a voice command. "Activate program." The smart chip of the mech instantly recognized the command and processed it into an electromagnetic message. The smart chip of the mech connected to the standby computer and entered the Research Institute's network. It activated the hacking program that was planted in the Research Institute the night before. The Research Institute's network was like a domino, and this hacking program was the first one to fall. It caused a chain reaction. It did not take much effort to break through the base level of the Research Institute's network. The control system changed hands within a few seconds. This was not a hacking program that Han Xiao had written on the spot. He had created all kinds of smart chips before. In order to prevent the control system from being taken away, he had created a lot of anti-hacking programs. At the same time, he had also written some hacking programs. He had never had the chance to use them. The map of the Research Institute appeared on the tactical holographic screen. Han Xiao gave a command. The wall of the exhibition room cracked open, and the medicine cabinet appeared again. The machine gun array on the ceiling retracted, and the door opened with a bang. When he hacked into the Research Institute's network yesterday, he had seen the structure of the Research Institute. He already knew the safety measures of the exhibition room. The Research Institute also had some heavily guarded warehouses that stored a large amount of medicine. However, the amount was too large. Han Xiao could only carry a limited amount of medicine. The amount of medicine in the exhibition room was just right. The sudden change made the higher-ups of the Research Institute pale. What happened? The system suddenly went out of control. Quickly take back the control. The technician on the side was sweating profusely as he typed furiously on the keyboard. Lines of code appeared one after another. Suddenly, the screen turned green and the system crashed. The technician said with a sad face, "No, the hacking speed of the opponent's program is too fast. It can't be solved in a short time." He was already prepared yesterday. The The higher-ups gritted their teeth in hatred. In the exhibition room, Kate was dumbfounded. Facing Han Zhao's pitch-black goggles, fear gripped his heart. His legs gave way, and he fell to the ground. He said in a panic, "I bang." A smoking muzzle appeared on the ground between his legs. Kate was so scared that he peed his pants and didn't dare to move. "Stay on the side and don't move. You still have a chance to live." Han Zhao's tone was playful. Okay, calm down," Kate hurriedly replied. His back was drenched in cold sweat, and he obediently shivered like a quail. Han Zhao smashed open all the display cabinets. With the enhancement of the mech, the power of his fists was even greater than bullets. He took out his backpack and stuffed all the medicines into it. He patted his bag in satisfaction. What a bountiful harvest. At first, he didn't have the intention of robbing the research center until he accidentally heard the conversation between Kate and the higher-ups about Yang Jian and Ned. Since the people in the research center weren't decent people, Han Zhao wasn't interested in talking to them nicely. Since they were all bad people, he would play by the rules of the bad guys. Whoever had the bigger fist could take whatever they wanted. If the person he talked to had beliefs, ambitions, and a bottom line that he thought was reliable, Han Zhao wouldn't mind talking to them normally. If the person he didn't like and wasn't strong enough, then he wouldn't hold back. He would unleash his original nature as a player and rob whatever he saw. He was very interested in the medicine from the research center. In fact, he liked to win people over with kindness. If they didn't like it, then he would beat them up. Although Han Zhao didn't love the world as much as the superheroes and didn't like the spirit of sacrificing oneself for others, he liked kind people. Being friends with good people in the general sense was, of course, more comfortable than dealing with bad people. Even bad people were more willing to be friends with good people because it was safe and untainted. Unfortunately, people's morals were deteriorating day by day. Good people were becoming fewer and fewer. You couldn't tell which smiling face was hiding evil intentions, and you couldn't tell which brothers were willing to sacrifice themselves for each other. On the surface, they called each other brothers, but behind their backs, they were gossiping. Even people from the same hometown would turn around and stab you in the crotch. Good people were rare animals. They could even be put in zoos. The word zoo wasn't appropriate. It would be better to change it to news broadcast or touching China. The Research Institute played the heroes in the palm of their hands because they were such snobbish and hypocritical people. Good people who were straightforward were becoming fewer and fewer, making it harder and harder to survive in society. The construction of spiritual civilization was collapsing, but in a sense it did feel like uniqueness. Most of the time, your persistence was just a duty in the eyes of others, and your hard work was just a means for others to squeeze benefits out of you. People's feelings were not the same, just like how the Lewis Research Institution took advantage of Yang Jian and Ned's enthusiasm. It was also like how he took away the hard work of the Research Institute. A saying suddenly popped up in Han Zhao's mind. What goes around comes around. Evil people will naturally be dealt with by evil people. I've become an evil person. Han Zhao couldn't help but laugh. It was rare to have the opportunity to do bad things with a clear conscience. He wouldn't spend money on a target that he could rob. The next time he changed his face, it would be another unfamiliar customer. Now was not the time to count his gains. Han Zhao carried his backpack and strode to the elevator. Kate collapsed on the ground and heaved a sigh of relief. She still had some lingering fear. The upper echelons in the monitoring room saw that all the drugs had been taken away and their hearts were bleeding. One of the upper echelons said angrily, "Hurry up and think of a way." "Got it. Get the control room to cut off all the power in the underground floor and trap him. Ask for help from the Maple government immediately. We still have guards. All of them are gathered at the entrance. As long as we can stall the enemy for 15 minutes. Once the army arrives, I will make sure that he dies without a complete corpse." When he reached the elevator, all the lights on the entire floor suddenly went off at the same time. It was pitch black. Han Zhao raised his eyebrows and switched to night vision mode. He laughed in his mind. Cut off the power? I knew it. Han Zhao bent his legs, and the elastic force generated by the nano muscle fibers gathered in his legs. The ground cracked open, and his entire body was like a cannonball, blasting through the ceiling and directly jumping upstairs. After 2 consecutive jumps, Han Xiao crashed into the hall. He immediately saw the bodyguards gathering at the entrance. There were only 20 of them now, not even 1/5 of the total number of guards in the Research Institute. Han Xiao's way of going upstairs was too fast, and the Research Institute didn't have much time to react. The upper echelons of the Research Institute were shocked by the performance of the mechanical suit. They hurriedly ordered the bodyguards to attack. Stall the enemy. The other bodyguards will be here in 10 seconds. F***CK. Before he could finish his order, Han Xiao had already sprang into action and knocked over the bodyguard in an instant. Like a bowling ball hitting a grand slam, Han Xiao's momentum did not slow down as he smashed through the glass of the door and disappeared into the street. He was so fast that only a black shadow was left in everyone's eyes. The upper echelons of the Research Institute were furious. They had high hopes that the bodyguards would be able to stall for at least 15 minutes, but they didn't even last 3 seconds. Seeing that they couldn't get the drugs back, the upper echelons' hearts bled. When will the Maple Army arrive? At least 10 minutes. It's too late. That bastard has already escaped. Is there any other way? Kate recovered and immediately said, "The 2 superheroes are still in the city. I'll contact them immediately." Chapter 182. Yang Jian received a call from Kate and asked in confusion, "Mr. Kate, are you looking for us?" Kate sounded anxious. "A robber stole the research results of the Research Institute, including the antidote to the death virus. If we can't get it back, our research results will be gone. The army won't be able to arrive in time, so we can only rely on you." The 2's faces turned serious. "We will definitely help." "Great, we can only rely on you. I'll send you the coordinates right away." The enemy is a man in a black mechanical suit. Black mechanical suit? Yang Jian and Ned's expressions changed. Could it be him? Running on the streets in a mechanical suit was too eye-catching. As soon as he left the Research Institute, he climbed to the roof of a nearby building and escaped from there. Even if someone saw him, the impact would be much smaller. He planned to find a secluded corner to take off the mechanical suit and change his appearance. So many potions. It's enough for me to drink like water every day. Han Xiao chuckled. After turning a few streets, Han Xiao jumped into a deserted alley. At this time, the radar showed that 2 strong life targets were tracking him. Searching through the database automatically, he found matches. They were the 2 superheroes that he had seen twice before. "They're tracking me?" Han Xiao thought about it and knew that they were tricked by Lewis Research Institution again. At this time, a notification popped up on the interface. "You have triggered the mission, Trial of a Hero." Mission introduction. There is no lack of righteous heroes, but there is a lack of correct methods. Some people have fallen into depravity. Some people have abandoned their original intentions. Some people have lost their principles, and some people have been taken advantage of by others. Choosing righteousness is a difficult path, and you can become their trial. Mission requirements. Defeat Yang Jian and Ned and expose the truth of Lewis Research Institution. Reward. Random. Han Xiao narrowed his eyes. He was interested in this mission. It felt like being a demon king. Han Xiao analyzed the data. "I have a few minutes to waste. I'll play with them." Han Xiao stopped and waited. Very soon, Yang Jian and Ned's figures flashed past the entrance of the alley. After a few seconds, the 2 of them hurriedly turned around and stood at the entrance of the alley to confront him. "It really is you." Yang Dian's expression was solemn. He had seen the combat strength of this mysterious mecha warrior with his own eyes. Even if he had been at his peak, he would have been knocked down with just a few punches. Moreover, he was still injured. However, when he remembered that Han Xiao had stolen the antidote to the death virus, Yang Jian mustered up his courage. Even if he could not win, he would not back down. Ned rubbed his hands, ready to attack. "Even if you saved us, we can't let you take away the antidote." Antidote. It was a typical case of being betrayed and still giving money to the number of people. Ned was the first to strike. He slapped his hands forward, and a shock wave swept across the alley. The walls were peeled off, and cracks appeared on the ground. Han Shao suddenly jumped up, drawing a rapid arc in the air, and crashed over like a cannonball. Yang Dian gritted his teeth and swung his fist forward. Bang! The fist wrapped in the mecha was like a flash of black lightning. Before Yang Dian could swing his fist, it struck Yang Dian in the chest. Yang Dian's vision blurred, and the scenery in his field of vision receded rapidly. He flew backward and was embedded into the wall with a loud bang. All the bones in his body were almost shattered from the impact. He was insta-killed in one hit. His stamina is even more terrifying than the lion that injured me. Yang Dian struggled to break free from the wall and panted heavily. Suddenly, he heard the sound of wind. Ned was also thrown over and fell beside his feet. There was a huge bump on his head. He was knocked dizzy by Han Zhao's light headbutt. He could not even last 3 seconds. He could not fight back at all. Yang Dian was filled with grief and anger. How could he stop the enemy like this? A sense of helplessness pierced through their hearts. Han Shao saw that the two gritted their teeth and were about to stand up. He looked at the timer in the corner of the holographic screen. He had given himself 5 minutes to deal with these two superheroes, but the situation was simpler than he had imagined. He had defeated the two in less than 10 seconds. These two were supers above LV-30. With his current strength, he was basically unparalleled. He took a few steps forward. Just as he was about to say something, Yang Dian struggled to stand up. With an unyielding and angry expression, he gritted his teeth and said, "You took away the antidote to the death virus. Many people will die. Today, even if I have to risk my life, I will stop you." Han Shao stomped his feet and said with a smile that did not look like a smile, "Dying as a hero. Other than withered flowers, empty praise, and a few fake tears, what else can you get?" Yang Dian gritted his teeth. "No matter what others think of me, as long as I am satisfied." Suddenly, Yang Dian's vision blurred. A large black hand expanded in his field of vision, grabbed his head, and smashed him into the wall. Debris flew everywhere. His head was bleeding. Yang Dian fell to the ground. His vision spun, and he did not even have the strength to stand up. Han Shao took out his pistol and pointed it at Yang Dian's forehead. The black muzzle made Yang Dian shiver. He barely regained consciousness. He wanted to struggle, but Han Shao stepped on his legs and slowly pulled the trigger. Yang Dian's eyes widened. At this moment, regret rushed into his mind uncontrollably. If I had not been so meddlesome, I would not have died today. Even if I gave it my all, I would not have been able to stop such a strong enemy. Coming here would only be suicide. I should not have agreed to your request. I was too impulsive, Ka. The trigger stopped. Yang Dian's body shook, but he did not feel any pain. He looked at Han Shao in shock as he backed away. Only then did he feel cold sweat drenching his clothes. Although he could not see his own face, it was definitely a twisted expression filled with fear, regret, and unwillingness. "What were you thinking about just now?" Han Shao asked. Yang Dian was stunned and fell silent. At the moment of death, the belief that he thought was indestructible was shaken. He was not as generous and tough as he said. At that moment, he felt regret. He even thought that agreeing to someone's request and dying was an extremely stupid thing to do. Before this, he had been working hard with the goal of becoming a superhero. He wanted to save more people, protect more civilians, and sacrifice himself for others. However, at this moment, Yang Dian only felt lost. Han Shao put the unloaded pistol back into the holster, took out his computer, put some information into the USB flash drive, unplugged it, and threw it to Yang Dian. He then turned around and disappeared in front of the two. Yang Dian and Ned were both stunned. The enemy left just like that? Why didn't he kill us? Yang Dian held the USB flash drive in confusion. "We are not his match. Don't go looking for death. Let's leave this place first." Ned supported Yang Dian as the two limped away from the scene. Another mission failure. The two were filled with shame. They did not have the face to see Kate. When they arrived at the entrance of Lewis Research Institution, The army had already arrived and sealed off the place. The two did not want to interact with the Maple Army, so they could only return to their resting place and bandage their wounds. Yang Jian had been thinking about Han Zhao's words the whole time. His mind was in a mess, and he lay on the bed in a daze. The thoughts from before kept flashing through his mind. He could feel that his concept of being a superhero was collapsing. Chapter 183. What's wrong? Yang Jian looked at the computer screen and was stunned. The contents of a USB flash drive were a portion of the project information that Han Xiao had obtained after hacking into the research facility. All the research projects related to the death virus were written on the USB flash drive. The USB flash drive contained the information that Han Xiao had obtained after hacking into the research facility. All the research projects related to the death virus were written on the USB flash drive. It also said that the exploration team that went to Robert's Forbidden Zone was just a team that went to dig for materials. The materials they brought back were used for the research of body strengthening. Is this for real? Could he be lying to us? He can kill us easily. There's no need for him to lie to us. Yang Jian and Ned's shock gradually turned into rage. It turned out that from the beginning to the end, the two of them had been fools. They had been played by the people of the Lewis Research Institute. They had naively believed the one-sided words of others. This made their persistence seem like a joke. No wonder the mysterious mecha warrior didn't kill them. He must have thought that they were pathetic, so he let them know the truth. Yang Jian was embarrassed and ashamed. He really wanted to find a hole to hide in. They had always called themselves superheroes, but they were saved by a stranger who they thought was evil for the second time. If the mysterious man hadn't revealed the truth, they would still be in the dark. Too bad we don't know his name. Otherwise, I would apologize in person. Ned was annoyed. Yang Jian nodded heavily. He called Kate and yelled, "So you've been lying to me." Kate was shocked. "What did I lie to you about? You've been using us and making us work for you. The exploration team and the cure for the virus are all fake." "What are you talking about? Why would I do that? You think too much." Kate's tone was unnatural. "I already have the key evidence. The research on the death virus is not for saving people." Yang Jian repeated. "Kate said that's all fake. You must have heard the rumors. You're still lying to us." Yang Jian was furious. He repeated the project number. After a moment of silence, Kate spoke again. His tone was cold, and he didn't want to pretend anymore. "So, you can do whatever you want." Yang Jian was furious, but he suddenly froze. Superhero." Kate's tone was sarcastic. He hung up the phone. Yang Jian held the phone and was stunned on the spot. His entire aura changed rapidly. Ned suddenly felt a chill down his spine. "Are you okay?" he hurriedly asked. Yang Jian shook his head and gently put down the phone. He let out an inexplicable laugh. "I'm fine. What could happen to me?" The research institute was in a mess. The higher-ups were sweating profusely as they negotiated with the military. Kate was very frustrated. He did not expect things to turn out this way. No one had ever dared to have any ideas about the research institute. They had many financial groups backing them up. Anyone who dared to touch the whiskers of the tiger would have to face an all-encompassing search and capture. Kate had already contacted the financial group behind him, and they were all furious about this incident. The other party claimed to be the executive officer of the German organization, Heisenberg, and was equipped with a mechanical suit with extremely high mechanical standards. The credibility of this claim was not low. Now, that the German organization was like a rat on the street, it did not matter if they made enemies or not. The financial group behind this decision decided not only to have the West Continent's intelligence network thoroughly investigate this person's whereabouts, but also to sponsor the expedition of the Six Nations and donate military funds. The financial group behind this had such a big reaction because the stolen drugs were urgently needed by the leaders of the various financial groups. For this reason, they were willing to spend money to get it back. Kate was already frustrated enough. He did not even want to care about the blame of the two superheroes. He did not care if they knew that they had been tricked, because superheroes would not seek revenge over such a small matter. Kate was very calm and fearless. Trial of a hero completed. Plus 40 Yang Dian favorability. Plus 40 Ned favorability. Han Xiao waited for a long time, but there were no new notifications. The reward is gone? What do I need the favorability of these two idiots for? He had never heard of these two people before. They were probably not important people. Han Xiao was speechless. Although the reward was reasonable, why did he feel so annoyed? Even some experience points would be better than this. Forget it. It's just a small mission. The biggest reward is this pile of drugs. Han Xiao lowered his head to look at the bulging bag in his hand and smiled to himself. When stealing the drugs. No, when snatching the drugs, Han Xiao had cleaned out the exhibition room of Lewis Research Institution. The good thing was that he could get almost all kinds of drugs. After finding a random small hotel to stay in, Han Xiao checked that there were no cameras in the room, as usual. He opened the bag and took out the different types of drugs and sat in a row. Let me see what's good. Han Xiao rubbed his hands. It was said that one could only be lucky when they were hot. Green lizard drug, medium concentration, 23. 3% made with the genes of the green lizard. This is a lazy creature. After drinking it, one's mind will become calm. Han Xiao was stunned for 3 seconds. He then stood up angrily and threw it on the floor. Green my ass. What's the point of developing this drug? My luck is better than this, even if I use my feet. Staring at this pile of colorful potions, Han Xiao inexplicably felt like a black cloud formed by a pit gas was covering his head. I hope the other drugs are reliable, he continued to touch. There were a total of 34 types of drugs. Fortunately, there was nothing else like the green lizard drug. Some of the more useful ones were not bad. The high-concentration death virus enhancer was much better than the one Kate gave him. The permanent attribute bonus was more, and the chance of awakening a rare talent was 3 times higher. Rhinoceros hormone, extracted from the kidney of a rhinoceros. Plus 5 STR and plus 5 END after injection. Duration, 5 minutes. Next injection within 30 minutes will not work. Thunder Claw Beast Extract. Extracted from a secretion of a Thunderclaw beast. Plus 12% melee attack for the next 5 attacks. Grouper Plague Pathogen. Causes the user to be infected with a grouper plague. There are 3 types of drugs here. Drugs that temporarily increased attributes, drugs that spread diseases, and drugs that permanently increased attributes were very rare. There were only the Death Virus Enhancer and the Falcon Potion, which increased DX. Some of the drugs can only be used once, but some can be used repeatedly. The Falcon Potion is the former, and the Death Virus Potion is the latter. That was why players were so fond of killing bosses in Laubert's Forbidden Zone. Usually, it was a competition between big guilds. You have used the Falcon Potion, plus 3 DX permanently. There were 4 bottles of Death Virus Potion in total. He drank them quickly. His STR, DX, and END all increased by 4. That bottle of high concentration allowed him to awaken a rare talent. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.